Recording in progress.
Go. Chair Miller,
Here.
Vice Chair Colas,
Here.
Board Member Brentlinger,
Here.
Board Member Klein,
Here.
Board Member Motisha.
Here.
We have a quorum. Board Member Arkalian will be absent today.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to general business, this is public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for a public discussion. Ms. Pilar, do we have anyone who'd like to speak?
Chair Miller, I do not see anyone in attendance that would like to make public comment on today's agenda, and we did not receive any written correspondence in advance for general public comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, let's move on to the approval of the minutes. Let's go to April 25th, 2022. Ms. Pilar, can we go through the items, please?
Okay, thank you, Chair Miller. So we should be seeing the minutes on the screen for the meeting of April 25th. Item 1, 1384 Shoreline Drive. Received project design approval and final approval with findings. No particular additional comments. Item 2, 105 Mesa Lane. Was continued indefinitely to the full board with comments.
Pardon me, if I have a change or correction, is now the time or when you're done?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go ahead and let me know your corrections.
Just a clarification on item number 2 from Board Member Klein. There was a comment here, number 8, to remove the proposed bamboo plantings from the landscape plan. For some reason, I recall an exchange about that where the landscape architect said it was non-invasive bamboo.
Right.
So I wasn't sure if what the conclusion of that.
Yeah, it was to
Conversation.
study the proposed instead of remove. Study.
Okay, so I guess it's study instead of remove. Thank you.
Thank you. We can make that change to study the proposed bamboo plantings from the landscape plan. Item 3, 857 Sea Ranch Drive. Was granted project design approval and continued to consent with comments. Item 4, 691 North Hope Avenue for Lot 5. Was granted project design approval and continued indefinitely to the full board with comments.
All right, thank you. Hearing no other changes or comments, may I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved?
I second it.
All right, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Here we go. Chair Miller,
Yes?
Vice Chair Colas,
Yes.
Board Member Brentlinger,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
and Board Member Patisha.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the approval of the consent calendar for May 9th, 2022. I believe our consent for last week was canceled, so we don't have any minutes for that.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair Miller. The consent calendar for May 9th was reviewed by Chair Miller and Board Member Klein. Item A, 3326 Madrona Drive was continued 2 weeks to consent with comments. Item B, 1485 La Cima Road was granted project design approval and final approval with conditions. Item C, 1542 Hillcrest Road was granted project design approval and final approval. And that concludes the minutes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I make that motion.
Thank you. May I have a
Second.
All right, thank you. May I have a roll call?
Here we go. Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Colas,
Yes.
Board Member Brentlinger,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
and Board Member Motisha.
Yes.
Yeah. Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals. Do we have any of those items?
Thank you, Chair Miller. I just wanted to introduce Holly Garson. She's going to be training to take over the role of the Single Family Design Board Staff Liaison, and will probably be fully taking over that position come the 1st of June. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, Holly, and any additional.
Hi there. Yeah, I'm looking forward to staffing SFDB and getting to know each of you and being of support.
Thank you, welcome.
And that concludes my announcements. Chair Miller, if the board has any additional announcements, you may do so at this time.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to item E, subcommittee reports. This time, I don't believe we have any. So it looks like item number 1, let's see, we're on time, is a discussion item, a general plan update. Ms. Jessica Metzger, project planner, are you here to speak? Hi, welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Miller and members of the board, although I'm not Jessica Metzger. I'm Rosie Deisty in Long Range Planning, project planner. And we're here today just to introduce you to a major program we're undergoing right now. It's an update of our housing element. So we want to just show you an introductory video and encourage you to sign up on our interested parties email list for more information. You would get notices of when we're having public meetings and things like that. So I think we'll just start with the video and then I can answer any questions you may have. There should be sound if you can.
And if not, we can have it on that computer. See if that would work. Yeah, let's try. Thank you, Ms. Hine. I think that answers the question. Yeah, I think so. Let's try it.
California law requires all cities and counties to have a plan for how they will meet the housing needs of everyone in the community. When population forecasts are updated, cities like Santa Barbara need to update their plans based on a specific number and types of housing they need to meet future needs. But what if we don't want to build more housing in Santa Barbara? That's normal. But there are actually a lot of reasons why it's important to meet our community's housing needs. Because of the high cost of housing, it can be challenging for cities across California to provide enough affordable housing for working families, seniors, and young professionals. And our children who grow up here can have a hard time staying in Santa Barbara due to housing affordability. Lack of affordable housing can lead to increased homelessness, overcrowding, and the costs associated with managing its effects on the community. Besides, having enough housing for everybody helps fulfill Santa Barbara's community vision to allow as much housing as possible within resource limits to provide an array of options for all residents. And if we don't get a new housing plan approved, the city could be fined, lose state funding opportunities, lose the ability to issue permits, and in the end, not have a say in where new housing should go. So how many new homes are needed? Based on the state's forecast and the local formula, Santa Barbara needs 8,001 new housing units. Of those, almost half need to be affordable to low and very low income households. The updated housing plan must show the exact locations where future housing can be built and how many homes can be built at each location. So, how do we decide where new housing should go? And what are considered good places for new homes? Vacant lots not set aside as open space, sites that are underutilized and need rehabilitation, locations where housing could become more dense than it is today, locations near public transit and essential services like healthcare facilities and neighborhood retail centers, areas where housing could be added to commercial buildings or in business parks, creating live-work neighborhoods. And some cities encourage homeowners to build granny flats on their properties. These are called accessory dwelling units. Before we decide what goes where, we need your help. What criteria are most important to you when thinking about where new housing should be located? The decisions we make over the coming months will shape our community for years to come. Let's work together to make sure Santa Barbara's updated housing plan really is the very best one for our city and our future. For more information, visit www.santabarbaraca.gov/HEU.
All right, so that concludes the video, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Does anyone on the board have any questions?
I do, but they're probably better served by the people that are drafting the ordinance, so thank you.
Yeah, it's a hot button issue. And I have questions too, but yeah, I think that's a great presentation. Yes.
Great, and I encourage you, like I said, to sign up to get notifications.
Yeah.
We will have a public review draft out this summer,
Okay.
and then we move on through normal review periods and hearings with Planning Commission and City Council. It's due to the state at the in February 2023.
Okay, good to know.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, let's see, I think we're on time for our item number 2. Let's move on to 2706 Cuesta Road. I'll read into the record the description of the plans. Proposal to substantially redevelopment of an existing 1,504 square foot single unit residence, including a 765 square foot garage to an accessory dwelling unit, ADU. Additional improvements include a new 365 square foot covered deck, exterior alterations, a new uncovered parking space and hardscape, and landscaping improvements. The proposed total of 3,056 square feet on a 9,000 square foot lot is 89% of the maximum required floor to lot area ratio. Staff hearing officer approval of an interior setback modification was granted on April 6, 2022. Project design approval is requested. Neighborhood preservation findings are required. Project was last reviewed on October 25th, 2021. Ms. Colas, would you be so kind to read into the record the minutes from the previous meeting?
Yes, happy to do that, Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
This project was continued to the staff hearing officer for return to the full board with the following comments. The board finds that the project as presented is in keeping with the general character of the neighborhood and in terms of massing, bulk, and scale. The board requests the applicant to include the footprint of the home located at 2702 Cuesta Road on the plans. The applicant shall illustrate a solution for screening of the deck relative to the home at 2702 Cuesta Road to the greatest extent possible through landscaping or other means. Alternatively, they could provide the board with a section cut through the southerly property line that illustrates how that is screened and or how it will not affect the privacy of that neighbor. The board requests that the applicant study the quantity of fenestration on the south side of the residence in an attempt to reduce it and support privacy for the owner at 2702 Cuesta Road. The board is generally split on their support of the location of the fireplace. The applicant shall provide a full landscape plan. The applicant shall provide a finished board with colors and finishes. The applicant shall consider permeable pavers for the driveway. Can staff scroll up, please? Thank you. Some members of the board would prefer to see a composite or asphalt shingle roof instead of the standing seam metal roof because they feel it is more in keeping with the genre of the home. The applicant shall study the front door on the west elevation, so the front door entry is more in keeping with the cottage-style architectural nature of the house. The applicant shall consider a softer color palette than provided. The applicant shall consider providing an opportunity for covered parking. The board can support the modification for the reconstruction of the existing square footage that sits within the side yard setback on the south side because it is in keeping with the existing development patterns in the neighborhood. It does not cause any safety concerns and is appropriate for the architectural style of the residence. The action was made by myself, seconded by Mr. Miller, and it carried 6-0.
All right, thank you. And if you'd like to introduce yourselves, and if, for sake of keeping things easy and not confusing, just to go how you addressed each one of those items, that'd be great.
And Chair Miller, just before we start that item, it did say in the agenda language, but staff hearing officer approval was recently granted for this particular project.
Okay.
So they are requesting project design approval at this hearing. It's your discretion to grant that. And just a reminder to the applicant team to keep your your presentation within 15 minutes. That'd be great. Thank you. And then Ms. Gu, can you switch back to the project plans? Thank you.
My name is Liz Hughes.
Yeah, I think we're all going to be heading to Mass, but, yeah.
Okay. My name is Liz Hughes, presenting for Tom Oxen Architects on behalf of the owner of Seppi Day. Project plans, and then we also have the landscape architect here with us checking for. I think your mic's not on. Oh, turn that on.
Ah, there we go. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Great. Just some photos of the surrounding neighborhood. This photo here, is of 2702 Cuesta, which is the property that was of concern in terms of screening. We actually walked the site with the owner, and you can see in this photo, I also brought some additional photos, that the existing fence that is on the neighboring property's side yard is actually quite dense, and they cannot see through to the design parcel at all. And we spoke with the neighbor, and they were not concerned about privacy issues along that edge. However, we also did address the concerns about reducing the size of the windows along that property line. These are just some other houses in the neighborhood along that streetscape. Photos of the existing residence. The project plans have remained pretty much the same in terms of mass, bulk, and scale. We didn't change the floor plan at all, but we did explore the exterior materials as discussed at the last hearing. The majority of the proposed exterior walls are horizontal siding, and we changed the color to be a warm, more of a warm gray color on the exterior. You'll see also, and we have colored elevations, which I'll go to after this. We also changed the roofing material to be a shingle roof, either a composite material or like a concrete tile. And then we also have some elements, accent elements with natural stone veneer. And then just some exterior lighting here as well. The existing survey. This is the landscape plan. Chuck, would you like to present since we're on the sheet?
The main thing was to the south side of the new deck or the modified deck is macadamia nut trees, and that's a real dense giant, can be kept like kind of like a giant shrub. So in my feeling, that's very adequately screening the neighbor to the south. And just the other thing on permeable paving, we have a civil, so I'm not going to talk about that.
I'll discuss that a little bit. So just to follow up on, a couple of items from the landscape plan. Originally, we had shown the tree in the front yard being removed, this large existing tree, which we decided to maintain on the property. There are also a lot of existing palm trees, which we're keeping there. And then just mostly cleaning up that existing front yard, which kind of has some overgrown hedges and that kind of thing. There was a request to look at permeable paving solutions for this portion of, or for the driveway portion. And this is actually pretty steeply sloped here, which is why, you know, we discussed with our civil engineer not providing permeable paving in that area because it doesn't really work that well on the sloped surface. So we left that concrete for now. And then also to kind of follow up on the privacy, we did discuss with the neighbor continuing the fence along that edge of the south side of the property to where it continues to the rear property line. And so that is another, I guess, layer of privacy there. And then this is that existing fence that you saw in the other photo, which, is there, can I show these images?
Yes, if you could just lay it right in front of the chair, and then City TV, can you zoom in on the photo that's presented on the desk, front of the chair? City TV, if you can zoom in to the photo.
They used to have
Thank you.
markers. There we go.
Yeah. Okay, so that's on the neighbor's side. And then the next photo is, sorry, this is actually on our side of the property line. And what we're planning on doing is installing horizontal slats that match the other side to kind of clean up this. Right now they have plywood there to cover it up. So we're just going to match the fence detailing that's on the other side here. So, these are the demolition plans. This is the proposed site plan where we show the adjacent residence. So you can kind of see the proposed residence is aligning, that exterior wall aligns pretty closely with the line of the existing residence on the neighboring property. And then the deck extends out about 14 feet past the face of the proposed wall. Just existing plans and elevations, if you want to come back to those. This is the proposed project plan. It's pretty much the same as what we had previously. We did add some posts here, which that's the one major change we made on the elevation was to this entry. There was a comment about the door being too modern. Previously, it was all glass. So we tried detailing this a little more traditionally with a pitched roof over this entry and then a more traditional type of farmhouse cottage door with side lights and a transom. So that's the major change to the elevations here. And the other changes were primarily exterior materials. This is just there's kind of a large crawl space here since the site slopes down steeply to the back. And then here's the new proposed roof plan showing that pitched roof over the entry area, which we'll get a better view of on the elevations, just some sections cutting through the site as it slopes down. Here's that front elevation where we have the new covered entry, this open framing to kind of introduce you into the project, and a more traditional but still open front door element here. We also changed the exterior materials. Originally, we had white siding, so this is more of like a warm gray stone color siding, and then accented more with these stone walls in the front. So we have some natural wood, we have some more warm siding, and we have some natural stone here as well. On the rear of the property, this is that covered deck element. And we have the cable railing. This is the same that we had before, just to keep that open for views out from the back side of the property. And then similar materials over here as well. The two side views. I'm going to discuss this a little bit because the The south elevation is the elevation that was discussed to reduce the openings, so I'm going to kind of go through that really quickly. We had another window here, which was removed. There was a window here in the bathroom, which was the same size as this one, which we changed to an awning window that's above. This window is the same, and these two windows have been reduced in size from a 4x4 to a 2.6 by a 4.0 window. So those windows have been adjusted based on the comments. And then just details. And I think, was there anything else that I missed on this list? Most of it was about the color palette, I think. So I think that concludes my presentation.
All right. Anything more, any comments for the landscape?
No, that's all.
Okay. Bring it back. Did we get any public comments?
Ms. Gu, can you switch to the staff presentation materials? Thank you. So if you're attending the meeting and would like to do public comment on an item for today's agenda for this particular item, you can do so by clicking the raise your hand icon, and that will notify staff that you'd like to speak. Ms. Gu, do we have any hands raised for this item?
I've not received any written public comment on this particular item in the room for speaker slips. I do have some public comment for other items on the agenda. Thank you.
Are there any hands raised for Zoom?
No, I do not see anything on Zoom.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bringing it back to the board for questions. I'll just go down the list. Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any questions, please?
Sorry. We just had someone who did raise their hand.
Oh, okay.
And Anne Lee. Let's see. I'm asking her to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Here she is.
Yes.
Okay, hi. So I'm the neighbor at 2702. And I think my husband may have met with people about looking at the yard and the privacy. So one point to make about the extension of the back patio that goes 14 feet beyond the back of the house now. If you look from the side view, because there's a slope, if they were to add just a 6-foot fence and also have the new patio extension on the right open, then they would actually be about 3 feet over the top of that fence, and as far as privacy goes, and looking into our property. And then the other comment that I wanted to make was about the fireplace, and I guess my understanding is that it's grandfathered in, but I was hoping to make a point about not having even allowing an old fireplace to be changed, and hoping to encourage actually removing fireplaces because of the air quality. And I think that's it. Those are my only 2 points.
Thank you for that public comment. And then Ms. Gu, do we have any other hands raised on this item?
No, we do not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, Ms. Kalas, would you like to continue, please?
Yeah, I had just 2 questions and maybe a follow-up question in regards to the public speaker. So this parcel falls away down to the back, correct? Okay, and so in one of your elevations, or maybe it's this one, it's actually this document here that you shared with us. The fence looks like it's about approximately 6 feet from, I'll call it the top of deck in this side yard area here. Is there, oh, let me back up. Is there a grade change between your parcel and the neighboring parcel at 2702? Is there a retained wall condition there?
It's a little higher, so on his side of the fence, it's about 8-foot fence, and on our side, it's about a 6, but it does vary as you go to the east.
So on the neighboring parcel is lower than your parcel?
At the home site.
Okay,
And that changes as you go towards the back.
okay, so the 6-foot note,
I think the neighboring parcel is above, isn't it, Chuck?
I don't think so.
Oh, at the
Because
front,
he
you're
has an
saying?
8-foot fence, remember talking about it?
Okay.
This one, I like 8-foot fence.
Yeah, I do know that towards as it slopes down towards the back, where the existing garage is, there's an area where it drops off between their property and this property. So ours does sit lower at that part, and maybe towards the area of this back deck, I would say that this grade is lower than the neighboring
is,
grade. Yeah.
So it's variable.
so it kind of does this as we go along the property line. Okay. So at any point, if you were to, so is your idea to step down the 6-foot fence as the property steps down also?
Yes.
Okay. I think you're allowed an 8-foot fence on property line. Okay, so 6-foot stepped, and then, so can you speak to the issue of the elevation of the rear deck versus what would be the elevation of the top of the fence? Because that was one of the public speakers' questions.
Yeah, and so I think the fence is more just to provide a boundary between the two properties. The real screening here is going to be a landscape screen. So we have, I think, 3, let me go back to the landscape plan. There are 3 proposed trees along that edge. Currently, what's there is an existing bamboo hedge. Here we go. So yeah, we have 3, oops.
2 are existing and 2 new.
So 3 proposed trees here, and there is some existing bamboo which we're planning on removing as part of this project. So primarily the screening for privacy towards the neighbor would be the landscape.
Okay, and Mr. McClure, what kind of trees are those?
Macadamia.
Oh, those are the macadamias, okay. Those were the only questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Brettlinger, do you have any questions, please?
I do. If I could just follow up on that same question about the macadamias. How high are those then when they're planted?
When they're planted?
Yeah.
I think we have 36-inch box responding to this
Okay.
issue. And, it probably gets to be 35 feet if you let it. So
Yeah.
it's quite a tree.
So initially, though, it would be
Yeah.
below the height of the fence,
Well,
right?
no, I think a 36 might plant out at about 6 or 8,
Oh, really?
The first day,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Twice.
All right. Okay, then separate from that is a square footage question. It looked to me, compared to the last submittal, that the FAR is higher and the square footage is about 300 feet more. But I couldn't find that in the floor plan. I wonder if you can tell me what the difference
Yeah,
is.
so that actually, the floor plans themselves did not change at all. It was just a matter of, we have a large crawl space below that has a non-occupiable space, but the ceiling is high enough where part of the space does need to be counted towards the FAR, that we're using it as mechanical space, but it's got about a 4.5 foot, 5 foot ceiling down there. So we ended up including it as part of our planning review for the modification. So that's what changed. And I
Okay.
have a floor plan here if you'd like to take, this is the plan of that area that we included as part of this submittal. It's crawl space.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
Yes. Could you explain maybe why you did the macadamia net versus the stenocarpus, which you have on the other side?
I just thought, because stenocarpus is hard to come by right now. Like, we've had real, I think they're all kind of sold out, so I kind of shifted to macadamia thinking they might be more available. That was the rationale.
Okay. But you do have Stenocarpus on the plan, correct? Yeah.
I think we do. If you
Along
could
the,
scale over.
the other side of the property line, I think.
Yeah,
Right here.
yeah, the one with the O, 2, or 4, or 5, yeah. All along the
1, 2.
the north side, yeah. Nice narrow tree, if we can get them.
Yeah. Okay, that's my only question.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions, please?
Yeah, I have some questions. I probably shouldn't question them. Parking, there's enough room down the east, west, north side of the house to a driveway that used to be there?
Sorry, what?
Do we know? Is there was there a
There-
driveway?
there
There's
was
a
a-
garage down there that
yes.
they're making into an ADU.
There was a driveway going down to the lower garage area. There's, I think, 10 feet between the face of the building
Yeah.
and the property line, so that's where the existing driveway was.
So for just my own information, you're providing a house, 3-bedroom house and an ADU, and you're only providing 1 parking space for the whole property. Is that true?
That's all that's required.
I realize that.
Yes,
I'm just
that's true.
making- I'm
That's
just
true.
making a point.
Yes.
So you could have, if everybody did that on the street, we could end up with double parallel parking on the street. I'm being facetious, but thank you. That's all my questions.
I guess it's my question. Yeah, because I think of the presentation we just saw a little earlier about the meeting, and it's like, just solve one problem, create a new problem. But anyway, I have no, actually, the one question I have, do we have access to the elevation from the previous iteration?
Yes, Chair Miller. And
Interesting. All right, thank you. I think that answers my question. I'll bring it back for comments. Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any comments, please?
I really like the changes that have been made. I think it's more in keeping with sort of the traditional nature of the neighborhood, and I appreciate the fact that the fenestration has been reduced on the side for the neighbor that had privacy concerns originally. I think that the screening question has been resolved with landscaping, so I'm generally in support of what we see.
All right, thank you very much. Board Member Bretlinger, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I do. It appears to me that you've answered the questions raised in the last meeting, and thank you for that. And I also believe that the architectural changes were positive and fit in the neighborhood. And I'm in support of the project.
Thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, just that I agree. I think the project is a nice update and is compatible with the neighborhood, and the privacy issues are sufficient with the screening.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I too agree with what you've done. Fits the neighborhood and looks very nice. Follows our guidelines, and I support the project too.
And then just as an added, it's nice to see a project that is not just white and black.
Yeah. All right, thank you. I pretty much echo what everyone else has said. So, like I said, they're here for project design approval. Would someone like to entertain a motion?
And Chair Miller, just to the board, if you are opting to grant project design approval at this hearing, which they're scheduled for, just include in the motion the neighborhood preservation findings.
And we don't have to mention anything about the modification, correct? 'Cause that was
No,
already-
that was already done by the staff hearing officer.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion for project design approval. And I'm comfortable making neighborhood preservation findings because the project appears to be consistent in appearance and nature with the neighborhood, especially with the changes that we've seen in terms of the softer color palette, the change in the front door, and the introduction of the stone. I think that speaks to the compatibility also. The size, bulk, and scale were addressed in our original hearing, and quality architectural materials are being used. Plaster, sandstone, asphalt roofing is consistent with the neighborhood. You've kept a tree that you were going to remove previously. We appreciate that, so I don't think that any trees are impacted. And the health, safety, and welfare of the public is being protected. Good neighborhood guidelines are being followed, and there's been a nice discourse with the neighbor at 2702 Cuesta, so we appreciate that. And there are no public views impacted, as we understand it, for this project.
All right, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second and ask that we say they come back for consent for final.
That's acceptable.
I'll second again.
Okay, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Okay, here we go. Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kalas,
Yes?
Board Member Brentlinger,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
and Board Member Batisha.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
And there's a 10-day appeal period for this process.
If this project had, is, we've seen it here a lot.
Are you the applicant for the next item?
It's not relates to question, but do they only need to provide one uncovered parking space? Yeah, I know, I remember when this started, you had it two covered for residents. This didn't have a two covered
Okay.
before they started.
Kind of waiting.
They got it through some way.
We could find the board, please. We're going to move on to the next project.
You can sit here. I've got the minutes up. We're going to start with that, and this is all your presentation materials. Okay.
You guys are so efficient.
Trying. Work in progress. Are we ready to start?
The homeowner is due to be here.
Chair Miller, we are on time to start the next item, or within the 15-minute time window, so we can do that.
Get started. Homeowner show up.
Sure.
Okay, we're moving on to item number 3, 1274 Sandell. This is a continued item. Project design approval is requested. Proposal for 547 square foot first floor addition.
Chair Miller, can you turn on your microphone? Apologies.
Yes, and a new 375 square foot second story to an existing 1,047 square foot single unit residence located in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone. Project includes a 160 square foot second story roof deck, new doors and new windows throughout, and an interior remodel. No improvements are proposed to the existing accessory dwelling unit, ADU. The proposed total of 1,969 square feet on a 7,384 square foot lot is 65% of the required maximum floor to lot area ratio. Project design approval is requested. Neighborhood preservation findings are required. Project was last reviewed on June 21st, 2021. Vice Chair Kalas, do we have minutes from the previous meeting that you could read into the record, please?
Ms. Gu, can you switch to the applicant presentation materials? And then you'll be able to scroll down to the minutes.
Is it the minutes that you're looking for? Or?
Yes, and then if you can just scroll down a little bit more so we can see the whole. Perfect. And a little bit higher up because we want this start. Perfect. There, a little bit more. A little bit more.
He doesn't want to go there.
There we go.
I don't blame you.
I knew exactly what I was doing.
Okay, so the motion that was made at the last hearing was that the board continue the project indefinitely with the following comments. Comment 1 was that the board does not feel that the project as proposed meets the guidelines of the Single-Family Design Board. 2, the board finds that the architecture appears to be too divergent from the surrounding neighborhood context. 3, the applicant is encouraged to return with contextual photos that support the proposed architecture, or alternatively, the applicant shall return with a revised design that is more commensurate with the neighborhood architecture. 4, the board finds that the gable elements appear to be reflective of the neighborhood context. 5, the board finds the massing of the project to be consistent with the neighborhood. And 6, the materials, specifically the large glass clear story elements, the chain link guardrails, and the yellow color illustrated in the rendering do not appear to be acceptable finishes. The motion was made by myself, seconded by Mr. Ziegler. It passed 4-0 with 1 opposing. Motisha was the opposing party. The motion carried.
All right, thank you. And if you'd like to just go down the
Sure.
different items and see how you address them, that'd be great.
Sure. Well, I think the first two are
Not, yeah.
not addressable
Well,
so much.
in terms of how you actually approach the style
Sure.
of the home. I
Sure.
guess.
And then to the applicant, the presentation materials that you see on the computer, they have the project plans and the old plans. And then just a reminder, you'll have 15 minutes for your presentation once you begin.
Sure. Well, first I'd like to start with contextual material. As we went around and
You want to put them here so that they can, so the eyeball can.
perfect. Yeah. It was fairly easy to kind of collect an array of more contemporary designs on the Mesa. As we know, the Mesa is a pretty eclectic group of buildings, ranging from our kind of cookie cutter development models that actually our project falls into, and then people remodeling in all different flavors, and modern is certainly a flavor that has been embraced and approved by you all. And so we went around and kind of, as requested, collected contextual images of built, approved, and lovingly inhabited modern architecture on the Mesa. And there's something to be said about the kind of different materials used as well, from glorified industrial materials to stucco. But one thing that most of these have in common is they do break down the massing, and it's some of them, not all of them, break down the massing in decent ways. That is, I would say, contextual to the more common house on the Mesa. But I will say that there are use of materials that I would say exceed our what we're proposing, and windows that certainly exceed our in terms of kind of the solid void relationships to the buildings themselves. So I'm hoping that this material, and I'm looking to publish this someday. I'm going to create a coffee table book for the Mesa Moderns. Anyway,
Sure.
I'm kidding. So that's kind of addressing your the one that you said about please come back with contextualized material. I'm hoping that addresses that comment. The other comment that I'd like to address is that the clear stories. If I can get back to the presentation window, how do I do that? Okay. So I think when we talk about the Claire story, that's the old version. I have a rendering. I have the old rendering and the new rendering that I'm hoping helps. The old rendering shows what I think is not being understood here is that those actually are not Claire stories. That's the second story. And in our original proposal, we had floor to ceiling windows along that. So they wouldn't be defined as clear story, they'd be defined as windows, I think. And I'm hoping that, step up, that's Noah. Yes. So I'm hoping that when we talk about the clear stories not being appropriate, I would say that absolutely if they were read as clear stories as the first story and then these gigantic windows above, then that's kind of ridiculous. But as an upstairs, you know, trying to maximize our view of the Pacific Ocean, that comment can be kind of adjusted appropriately. And the new design, the rendering.
City TV, can you zoom in on the overhead camera?
We've reduced the size of the second story windows. They're no longer floor to ceiling. We've raised the sill a bit and broken down them into 5 panels rather than 4. That helps with the kind of proportions of that. The other item that I'd like to address is that, you know, although we've moved away from it, that chain link was not actually chain link. It's actually a very fine cable rail, but of a different you know, material. I mean, a different configuration. It's actually a very high-end material, but we have moved away from that to a more standard cable rail for that proposed roof terrace there. As far as the material of the rest of it, you know, we showed you in the precedents some kind of rusted corrugated metal, which, you know, may have been fine in a, you know, in a different setting. I find that to be dated already. But what we're proposing actually is more of a hat channel section material.
If you could just lay that
Oh, yeah,
on
sure.
so the
First,
camera
I'm
can
going to do
take
it like
it.
this. Ooh. It's not a corrugated. It's not a typical corrugated that you'd find at Home Depot. It's actually a specialized section, and the coating is actually. You guys should look at it in a vertical, just so you know. It's not going to reflect light.
That's insane.
But this is an anodized matte finish of a gold color, not a highly reflected material that may have been misread in that representational rendering. So what I'm trying to get to here is that the materials are actually of a very high quality. We're not creating kind of a Frank Gehry-esque chain link fence corrugated metal craziness. What we're doing is we're composing materials responsibly. That's a manufactured wood-like, but not wood, material that goes on the rest of those, of the siding and the darker portions of the rendering above and around. So when you put those together, we're trying to create a grain for the building, to break down the massing and also to give it a richness and a fineness. And the detailing is such that this is not a slapped together kind of, what was it, like a landed from Santa Monica or something. This is actually a well thought and not inexpensive proposal. So what we've addressed is the chain link is no longer chain link or the material that I was proposing. It is a standard cable railing. We've broken down the upper story, which is the master window element, to be less of a imposing thing, and I'm hoping that we could look at the material that we're proposing as something not so foreign that's already there, like the rusted material that we saw in other projects, and also to try to convey the quality that we're trying to propose here for this structure. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
All right, thank you very much.
And
Yes.
sorry, you're going to open for public
Oh,
comments.
that's all right, you have 6 minutes, so.
Oh, well, we also, Noah took great efforts to travel around and talk to his neighbors and present the material that we're showing you here, the actual material and the renderings and the architectural drawings, and he found nothing but support. I think there may be one comment in there that came up last time as well, and we are happy to add a trash enclosure if that's allowable in the setback, or front yard setback. We can propose that as well to address that. Totally legitimate concern, you know. So yeah, I think that's it for me.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Pillar, did we get any public comment, please?
Thank you, Chair Miller. And Ms. Gu, can you switch to the the staff presentation materials? Thank you. So if you're a member of the public and you'd like to make oral public comment and you're participating via Zoom, you can do so by clicking the raise your hand icon, and that'll notify staff that you would like to speak. While we're waiting for that, Ms. Gu, did we receive any written correspondence on this item on the agenda?
Yes, we did. We did receive some public comment. We got about 9 people who wrote in on their comments on this particular item.
Thank you. And those were distributed to the board in advance of this meeting, correct?
It's distributed in advance of this meeting. Thank you.
And are there any hands raised for Zoom?
I do not see any hands raised on this particular item.
Perfect. Thank you. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board for questions. Vice Chair Colas, do you have any questions, please?
I do. I'm not going to backpedal on my position on this project from where I was last hearing for it, to be honest with you. I appreciate the materials that you've brought. I'd like to know how many of the homes that you have brought to us in this binder that we looked at are in the immediate vicinity, within 20 homes of this project.
I would say 3 of those are within 20.
Which ones are those? Would you please let us know?
No, it would be better at this, but I know that starting backwards. You tell me.
This one is not. I know that the other one is not. They're far afield from yours, actually.
It's,
that's on Shoreline.
yeah, it's 5 blocks.
This one is completely across Meg's from you.
Yeah,
But
I love it.
Which one is that? Well, is it La Playa or La Plata?
La Playa is what it
No,
says here.
It's Mesa. This is actually a planning commissioner's house on the Mesa. Actually.
I don't know. Can I interject, Leslie? Because you're bringing up an issue, and I really want to underscore this because
These others. See, I've got 3. I've got photos of 3 I could show on my phone.
Well, let me clarify something here.
I was just trying to find it in terms
Yeah,
of definition
so I
of
want to
neighborhood.
actually put this, I wanted to read it in the record, so I want the public to know, not think that the single-family design board is a bunch of bad guys.
City TV, if you can just zoom in onto the materials in front of the chair.
Yeah, so the issue that Ms. Colas is bringing up is neighborhood compatibility, and I'm sorry, I spilled a cup of coffee on the bottom of my magazine from so much enthusiastic reading that. Anyway, so the design a project to be compatible with the immediate neighborhood and carefully consider the neighborhood study area for our project. People think that their neighborhood in different ways. There are large areas of the city, sometimes referred to as neighborhoods. There are also smaller immediate neighborhoods. The Neighborhood Preservation Ordinance requires homes to be compatible with this neighborhood. To help determine project compatibility with the neighborhood, the Single Family Design Board will generally refer to a neighborhood study area defined below. A neighborhood study area allows the SFDB to efficiently review homes for compatibility. Following are 3 levels of neighborhood recognized by SFDB. General plan neighborhood. Neighborhoods are as delineated in the land-used element of the city's general plan. Immediate neighborhood, generally in areas smaller than a general plan neighborhood that has a combination of the following characteristics in common: similar zoning, properties built as part of the same original subdivision, common access routes, walkable radius, 15 minutes, usually quarter-mile radius, similar architectural styles, similar tree and landscape patterns, main streets, bridges, or railroad corridors as a boundary. Also, it should be noted that highly visible properties such as those on hillside areas can have an impact beyond their immediate neighborhood. And there's also a diagram here of showing kind of an idea of an immediate neighborhood. So that's the context of why we ask these questions. Because frequently what's brought up is that, and I'll stop, is that it's not that we don't like or like an architectural style, it's like, we're kind of set in our mindset of compatibility. And that's basically what I want to say.
Can I just-
Thank you for that, Chair
Yeah.
Miller.
Can I interject on that?
Well, it's up to Ms. Kolosich, since it's-
I mean, I've got plenty.
No, that's it.
In that quarter-mile radius. Here's one right here.
well, here,
Here's
just,
another one.
here's the thing though.
I keep going through,
Well,
so.
So if you could please stop, let me just make it clear here. You say that and you show evidence, but what we need is the address so that we can specifically
Should be on
pinpoint
here.
it. So that's all we're saying. It's not like we're bad or against you, it's just that we have
We're
a-
beholden to the guidelines of our board.
Right.
So, no, it's my turn to speak, sorry. You can speak when it comes back to your opportunity to respond. So, the problem that I'm having is that when I drive along your street, when I look at the other parcels in your neighborhood, this does not appear to be consistent in any way, shape, or form with those. And unless you can prove me wrong, prove me otherwise, which unfortunately, I mean, I appreciate the efforts made with your presentation today, but unfortunately, they're not addressing this issue of adjacency here. And so, I'm left in a position where I cannot, based on guidelines, move this forward. So that's my initial comment here. I appreciate the quality of materials that you're proposing. I do have concerns about the reflectivity of this hat channel. Kind of looks like bee decking that's just been painted, but I do have concerns about that reflectivity. I appreciate the
We're at
minor
questions, too,
reduction.
by the way.
Oh, you're right. We are in questions.
Chair Miller, I just want to interject for a minute, and you already started off with that. So we're in the questions period. So just keep it to questions for the applicant, and then we'll move into comments later. And then if you would like to request any additional studies, such as a neighborhood context study, you can ask that of the applicant, and they can provide that with the addresses and photos for reference, at a future hearing, if that's your request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so my first question was how many homes shown within this binder are actually within the immediate context?
One.
Okay, and can you tell me which one that is,
Let me see
please?
which, there should be more, because we've got 4 within media context with mixed-style roofs, flat. We have, I get frustrated with this, because I've gone around, knocked on doors, and I've heard this very visceral, strong reaction from people who've had trouble with the board. So it's frustrating. Like yesterday, I sat there with my son listening to somebody.
Sir, if
for
you would
40
like to not
minutes.
stop, we
So
get,
it's-
we get a very visceral reaction
know.
too from people who come to us screaming at us or we're not doing our job, so.
I get it, but so I was just
Okay,
listening
no,
to this
No,
the other
can you
day,
just-
so
I would really
you gotta,
request-
yeah. I mean,
Again.
I'm trying to temper it, but it's frustrating to hear this.
Frustrating for us
Because
too.
I'm
Sir,
walking
could you
around
just
and
stop?
seeing it,
I got it.
so,
Stop. Please.
Okay, it's not printed here, but the one Noah showed on the phone is about
Got 3.
six houses around the corner from him. But I guess I didn't print them all out, so my coffee table book is not going to be published. Okay,
There's another
next
one.
question.
This one, is this
No.
in there?
Can you tell me what that is?
So the next question that I have, we're gonna move on. The next question that I have is how much you reduced what we were referring to as clear story windows, but should have referred to as just second story windows.
Is that an accurate description of what they're doing?
I haven't seen the floor plans today. I'm assuming it is based on what you told me. So I'm just wondering if you can tell me how much you reduced the height of those.
20%.
Okay. And those were the only questions that I have, except I guess there's a question for staff in regards to whether trash enclosures can be located in front yard setbacks.
Thank you. Vice Chair Collas. So trash enclosures are prohibited in the front yard and front setback, interior setbacks, unless they receive a minor zoning exception. So it'd have to be something that the applicant is formally requesting. Minor zoning exceptions are approved by this board. So if they do want to opt to move forward with that, staff would look at it on the plans, make sure it's conforming to the criteria for a minor zoning exception. There's fees associated with that, and if that's the case, they would come back and request that formally from you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Plummer.
All right, thank you. Board Member Brentlinger, do you have any questions, please?
I do, yeah, thank you. I just wondered if you do have or could provide us with the neighborhood map, just so we can see where your comparable modern architecture is in relation to your site?
Not today, but we can.
Okay, that would be helpful, thank you. And then my other question is on the, what had been called the clear story and is windows for the addition on upstairs. Can you tell me how high the base of the window is from the
24
floor?
inches from finished floor is the sill height.
Okay, okay. And did you consider any higher than 24 inches?
Did I consider that? Well, it was floor to ceiling, so.
Right.
Raising that, as we know, the view is towards the ocean, so of course, we're trying to maximize that view and give that space a feeling of an airy, floating above.
Apologies, sir. Can you just bring the microphone a little closer to you? I think it is on, but you're just a bit far away from it.
So to answer your question, I considered that height very carefully, but I didn't consider raising it from the 24 that I proposed.
Okay. And if you did raise it, do you think the view would be compromised, from 24 to 36 inches?
We can look at raising that, certainly. Sure.
Okay. That's all I've got. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
Yes, apologies if you already said this, but is the corrugated material, does it weather? Because the Mesa has,
It does not.
Yeah.
It's an anodized bulletproof.
Yeah.
Almost a kynar, but not a kynar.
Yeah, because the marine layer just
Yes,
sits in that Mesa area. Also, what was the retaining wall material
There is no retaining wall.
in the front steps?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's cast in place, board form cast in place. The planter.
yeah.
Yes. Currently, there's a kind of a dilapidated stone-ish wall there that we're replacing to terrace that up.
Great,
And
okay.
plant, yes.
And then I was just wondering if you could say in the immediate area of the modern homes, what is the materials that you see?
Oh, it
around.
ranges from a combination of stucco and wood and the wood ranges from a 2-inch batten, tight battens to 6-inch with rivioles. Usually redwood or ipe. I've seen corrugated metal that's been rusted out. I've seen a lot of glass and steel standing seam roofs, TPO style roofs. It's all over the place.
Great, that answers it. Thank you. That's all.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions, please?
Do we have a record of why I
Yes.
objected to this?
You did not object to it.
He did.
You objected to our objection.
He opposed the motion.
Objected to the motion, supported
To
the project.
continue.
Okay, because I remember but I'd forgotten what I had said about. And I know people asked, really familiar questions. No, I don't have any questions. I have some comments, but no questions.
Okay, I have no questions at this time either, so we'll move it on to comments. Vice Chair Collas, do you have any comments, please?
I think I started making comments before,
I
so
know,
I'm
I'm kind of
already in
sorry.
trouble for that. I need to be proven wrong, is I guess what I would say. I need to be shown that this is compatible with the neighborhood, because based on my drive around the neighborhood, I don't see it. And I appreciate the efforts that have been made, but I think we need a more narrowed study that's in the immediate vicinity.
Within those guidelines.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely, within our guidelines.
Within
And
a quarter mile?
No.
the guidelines are right here, they're public record. Your architect can review those. I do appreciate the fact that the clear story windows have been, or not the clear story windows, but the second story windows have been altered. I actually think that that helps the front elevation to have that base or that plinth or whatever we want to call it there, to have a little bit of mass there. I actually think it helps it. I think it'll be easier from a flashing standpoint for you too. I appreciate the change in the cable railing. I would like to, and I don't know how you can accomplish this, but it would be interesting to have some sort of study in regards to the reflectivity of the material, because just today was a perfect example right in front of us, right? And this is
totally agree.
south-facing, so we need to understand what the implications of that are.
Yeah, we actually did place the material up on the building. It's such a small sample size. What we'll do is do a day study, with the
That would be
material
very
up. Yeah.
helpful. That would be very helpful.
It's very different than having fluorescent lights on it. I mean, it changes throughout the day.
Sure. Well, yeah, and
With
it's,
direct light
in
on
a
it,
vertical
it's not.
application, it'll be different than in a
I mean,
horizontal
I even think
application.
it's darker than the stucco
Mhm.
right now, which is interesting. I mean, we're doing this to reflect the light of the mesa, or to pick up and change with the light of the mesa. In a way to keep the stucco out of the landfill, surround the building with the new material.
Yeah, that's a good point, Nora. We're actually not pulling the existing material off to try to be responsible. We're adding almost a rain screen, not a rain screen, to the outside, kind of mitigating the ecological effects of the construction.
Okay,
and
that's appreciated.
I mean, that's, what I say, that I didn't want to take stucco off a building, redo a building, and put stucco back on.
Mhm.
If I could save that,
Right.
wrap it.
Smart.
I would be willing to support the trash enclosure if you pursued a minor zoning request for that, depending upon how it was, where it was placed and how it was screened. And actually, I like the vertical siding material. I like this a lot. I don't know what we would call that. I guess it's
They call it a European simulated.
it's a
wood siding.
manufactured simulated wood siding, about 1 inch in square. I think that's very nice. Those are my only comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Redlinger, do you have any comments, please?
I do, thank you. Just for the record, this is the first time I've seen this project, and so I just wanted to let people know that I reviewed the minutes from the last meeting as well as the video. So I have to say this in order to vote on this. But it also is educational because, I heard the initial discussion, and I think that you guys have done a lot of work to try to answer some of these questions. As far as I can tell, you probably have the information, but it needs to, as has been said, we need to be able to understand how the information you have really associates with the closer neighborhood to your house. For instance, on the examples in your coffee table book, I didn't see anything from San Miguel. It may be that they're close by, but I don't know. So if you can map those out, that would be great. And then, show it in sort of side by side with your immediate neighbors, so we really know how it fits in.
There's four.
Okay, there's,
immediately.
great, but
Okay,
we don't,
we'll have to
we
One
can't,
San Miguel, one, actually five. One
Okay.
Plaza, one-
we just need to see that on a map so we can associate that. And I like the idea of not removing the stucco and wrapping it. I did some work with some Japanese home builders who do that as a way of really waterproofing the house, because it's a separation from the rest of the wall. So anyway, it's a good idea for a couple reasons. I think you got it loud and clear. What we're really looking for is how do you fit into to the close-in neighborhood as opposed to the, we don't know how close-in it is. So I guess those are my comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I think the project fits within the mass, bulk, and scale of the neighborhood. I appreciate the studies that were done. I also agree that very high quality materials are being used, which I appreciate, but as you mentioned, all those different types of materials, I would take a look at the immediate neighborhood and kind of draw from those, and also the coloring as well. The darker material seems to fit, but the more yellow tint, I don't know if that really fits within the neighborhood. Those are my comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any comments, please?
Let me ask the question again. I objected to the last time because
Don't ask me, I don't know why.
I'm asking the whole board. I'm looking at you, but I'm asking the whole board. Did I feel that we were throwing the book at them and saying, hey, you can't do this? That I objected to throwing the book at them and saying, change this?
I can't recall, Mr.
I
Motisha.
can-
This was back in April or whenever it was.
I can tell you were very
June of
complimentary about
last
the
year.
design.
Say that again?
You were very complimentary about the design.
Well, I will follow with a comment from that. I'm probably, we get people in front of us who do design, do architecture, and we have the audience full of people who don't like it. Well, we don't have anybody here that doesn't like it. At least I don't think we've had anybody. And I like architecture. I like different architecture. And
Speak into your microphone.
it's just, okay, let me get a little closer to it. I think you've made some changes to it that I like, and God, I can't go against our guidelines, and I agree with Board Member Kloss. But on the other hand, I like the project, and I like what you've done to it, and I like architecture. Bring us some. I mean, I support the project. Bring us some examples and make sure that we can look at them and compare them close, and I'll be 100%. Because
Quarter mile.
no, not a quarter mile. No, we're not putting a distance. We're just saying San Miguel. We've already stated. Are there houses on the upper side of San Miguel like that have what you're trying to do? And we have to stay with our guidelines. Even when we have a crowd out there that objects to it, we have to satisfy them because they're reading our guidelines and they expect us to go by those guidelines. Even with nobody out there.
I was going to say that there's some very strong comments in there in favor it within that.
That's because everybody's different. Everybody is
The
different.
only comments we have are the support, and some of them are within that immediate area.
Prove it to
So
us.
Chair Miller, we're in the comment phrase, so I'm just asking the board to
this is
keep
not
it
a debate.
to, comments
Yeah,
by the board. Thank
Did I
you.
get beyond my comments?
Well, don't say prove it. That opens
Oh,
up a
I'm
nest of
sorry.
flies.
Thank you. So,
I'm finished.
I
Thank you.
understand.
Thank you.
Are you done?
Yep.
So the only thing I can say is this is an opportunity for you. You know what to do. I can totally hear it in your voice and your understanding as an architect. I've been on this board since 2010. I've heard a lot. I was on your side. I had a client once, and the board said we don't want the second story because back in those days, even when allowed second story, the client stood up, stormed out, and stiffed me almost $5,000 because of this board. So trust me, I understand the frustration you're going through. But this is public domain. And I really feel you're in good hands, and I look forward to hearing, and this is exciting. This is a very exciting project. I love the philosophy you have behind of not, wrapping it so that we're not creating more into the landfill. So I think there's a lot of wonderful opportunity here, and I think that's the way you want to hold it. Don't, because we've all been there. So it's just, we have.
In order for us to move forward in a productive way, may I ask a few questions of the board based on the comments that were made by the board?
Sure.
Okay. Well, one, you right out of the bat said you're not going to support the project. So how do I deal with that? One. And then you went on and said how you broke it down and you actually appreciated a lot of the part of it. I don't know how to address a board that says, a board member that says no in the question phase of the program. Okay.
I can help you.
Okay.
That's legitimate.
But I actually can help you there.
Okay.
This is my answer.
Right.
Walk the immediate neighborhood.
No, I'm going to get to
And-
that.
and look at it.
She's totally, I understood that part of it.
No, wait, just let me
Okay,
finish.
okay.
Just relax, just relax.
It's hard.
And then think of what you saw, and then think of what you want,
Okay.
and then try to make it work.
Okay. Then my next inquiry, and I'm not trying to be adversarial. I'm trying to understand so I can be productive next time. When these outliers, obviously not on San Miguel or not adjacent, not within 20 parcels, comes to the board, they're facing the same issues. They don't have modern architecture right next door or within 20, and they're getting approved. So I don't understand the playing field when you say it has to be within, or not you, the guidelines say it has to be within 20 parcels, but that's not being applied. These are not sitting in isolated zones of modern architecture. They're spread along the mesa and.
So here, I can answer that
Please,
too.
please.
So this is a volunteer board,
Okay,
and it's not rational.
I knew that was coming. Okay, so
And you can get a board that are all pro-modern,
I don't think you guys
or
are
you can-
anti-modern.
but we're not. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying they have a bias.
Okay,
So, but we're all volunteers, and so
Right.
it's a reflection. And the other thing about our board is we're not a part of the city building department.
No, I
We're actually a public citizens action committee.
I understand.
We're part of the charter of the city of Santa Barbara, and they're just there. They're just the messenger, and they're just as much a victim of it as you
No,
are
I
in that respect.
I totally understand, and that subjectivity is what makes it difficult.
And there was a woman who designed a beautiful Victorian home on the Mesa.
I was getting there.
And it was 3 stories high, and I think over 100 neighbors showed up screaming their heads off. The meetings went on for midnight because we didn't have an SFD bin, it was ABR, I think. And that's how we were born, was because the citizens of this community were outraged that they couldn't speak about the development of their own communities. So that's kind of, that's my answer to that. So.
Okay, so okay.
So with that, I don't want to talk about this anymore. We can't belabor this.
Yeah, Chair Miller, I'd ask the board, since you provided your comments to the applicant, if one of the board members can make a motion giving the applicant direction, based on your comments at this hearing. Thank you.
So would someone like to entertain a motion?
May I ask a question?
No, not at this point. No, please. We've got to move on, please.
You're only going to hurt your case. Okay.
Got off direction from the planning commissioner.
Okay.
I'll give it a go.
Okay, thank you.
So I move that we continue indefinitely with following comments, which is the board feels like the scale and mass of the project is consistent with the design guidelines in the neighborhood. However, the board would like some additional information on the architectural styling, consistent with the design guidelines that indicates how the architectural style, we'll call it modern, and the materials is consistent with the neighborhood per the design guidelines, and in a format that is mapped out so we can clearly see the relationship between your property on San Miguel and the examples. And then I would ask that you also, I think the board would ask that you also study the size of the second-story windows to see if they could be reduced in any way. I think I'll stop there unless there's something else we need to be sure we include to that.
Okay, do I have a seconder to the motion?
I'll second.
All right, so Ms.
I'd
Claus?
like to request that maybe 3 things be included or altered in the motion, if you're willing. One is that the reflectivity of the, I'll call it mustard color siding, be studied, and that the applicant return with some information in regards to the reflectivity of it over the course of a day. And I guess if you're comfortable with this, that we'd be willing to support the front yard minor zoning exception for the trash enclosure. And I guess just one comment in regards to your motion. I don't know if we need to make the first comment because that was made at a previous hearing, and I don't think that our perspective on the mass and bulking, the bulk, mass, and scale has changed. I think that we're all comfortable with that. I don't know if we need to restate that.
I'm in agreement with that.
Okay, so, thank you. Can you?
I'll second again.
Yeah,
Second again?
Do you seconder agree to that?
Yeah.
Jean? Can you go say, repeat the motion so I'm clear what we just said?
Okay. Continued indefinitely with the comments. The board finds the scale and massing is consistent with the neighborhood. Provide architectural styling of the modern styles to make sure it is consistent and clearly mapped out with the current style of the neighborhood. The mustard siding, reflectivity is still a concern. Please provide over the course of a day the proof that the reflectivity is not negatively impacting the neighborhood. The board finds the minor zoning exception acceptable.
Okay, thank you.
I think the one thing, I think we agreed to take out the comment on the massing and scale.
Completely?
And also, Ms. Gu, I believe there was a comment by Mr. Bretlinger regarding the second-story windows.
Correct.
And, okay, was the reflectivity properly spoken in the motion?
For the
I believe
mustard
so.
colored siding.
Yeah, I don't think we need the comment about that it's not negatively impacting the neighborhood. I think we just want to see a study of the reflectivity.
Study.
Yeah, if you could scratch that.
Simplify it, yeah, whatever.
But she didn't say rusted, did she?
We'll repeat it one more time.
Study the reflectivity of the mustard colored siding proposed
Okay,
over the course of a day.
okay, good. So, everyone happy? Okay, may I have a roll call, please?
Here we go. Board Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Collas,
Yes.
Board Member Bretlanger,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
and Board Member Morticia.
Yes.
Motion passes for continuation.
All right,
indefinitely.
thank you. We will look forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on time for item number 4.
And for the record, I am stepping down as I'm part of the applicant team.
Okay, thank you, and you'll have the little thing I have to. Okay, moving on to item 4, we're 130 Camino Alto Road. Proposal to construct a 3,521 square foot single unit residence on a vacant lot located in the Hillside Design District, including a 530 square foot attached garage and 272 square foot workshop. Project includes improvements to the existing privacy walls at Camino Alto, grading and landscape hardscape improvements. The proposed total of 4,120 square feet on a 30,204 square foot lot is 86% of the maximum guideline floor-to-lot area ratio. No final appealable decision will take place at this hearing. neighborhood preservation findings, hillside design district, and slope lot findings and grading findings will be required when the project is reviewed for project design approval. Hi, welcome. Hello. Hi. So if you'd like to present your project, that'd be great.
Sure, I'm Lino Granata from Stillwater Dwellings, I'm the project architect.
Great.
Katie Klein, landscape architect.
And Chair Miller, before we begin the applicant's presentation, I just wanted to provide some staff comments as well as.
And I have something I have to say too, right?
Yes,
Put it in the record.
and it will be on the screen in just a moment. And then Ms. Gu, if you can switch to the staff presentation materials. Thank you. So regarding the State Political Reform Act, sole proprietor, as Board Member Klein has stepped down from this item. If you could just read that into the record.
Sure. The State Fair Political Practices Act, FPPC, Regulation 18702.4, Section B, Section 5 states that an official may appear before a design or architectural review committee of which he or she is a member at present, explain architectural or engineering drawings which the official has prepared for a client. Board Member Klein, Katie Klein, is a sole practitioner and is using this exception, understanding certain limits regarding advocating on behalf of their client. The City Attorney's Office has determined that sole proprietors are allowed to prepare professional documents and make project presentations before a board they serve on based on the exception of the Political Reform Act and Fair Political Practices Commission rulings. The limitation is that they are not to unduly influence their fellow board members on a decision by advocating for their clients. The exception allows board members to continue practicing their profession in the city while volunteering on a board.
All right, thank you, Chair Miller. And just some brief staff comments. So this project is before you for an initial concept review hearing. They have not been deemed complete yet. They've gone through the first internal review by the city, but they're still in the works of addressing comments by staff. So at this hearing, we're looking for general comments about size, bulk, and scale, location of improvements on the site, and any other general comments about neighborhood compatibility. And then I'll turn it over to the applicant for their presentation. To the applicant team, you'll have 15 minutes. Thank you.
And this is a project that has gone through an initial design review in the past. Had a completely different design with pretty generous bulking. So we went through an extensive redesign, which is being reflected now. And would it suit you if I just go right to the plans, quickly go through the plans and then go through the massing?
Sure.
Okay. For the siting, there's the existing driveway over here off of the Camino here. The garage is tucked down below, which leaves us sort of a buildable area that's in this general vicinity here. We're flanked by two neighbors, one on each side. The neighbor down to the south here has a higher bulking and mass, and we're sort of responding to that. In the previous design, the floor plan and massing went sort of parallel with the road. You'll see that we've responded to that by limiting to like a one-story portion for the main part of the building, and then limiting the upper story massing on one side that is reflecting towards the scale of the south neighbor. We are looking at a 4-bedroom, 4.5-bath house, so quite a bit of program. In order for us to achieve that, we really condensed the amount of circulation throughout. So, as you enter the vestibule, you're greeted into a great room, and then, the ancillary spaces off on the side here with the garage and attached storage shop area in the back. For the upper level, Again, we're limiting our development to one side with the master area and a studio bedroom on the back side. Both bedrooms have decks off the back, or sorry, have deck areas and balcony areas. And that really helps with scaling the perceived bulk from the view sides, because we do have extensive overhangs, so the window area is set back from the edge. In terms of the elevation, this is, well, actually, let me go to the street elevation here. So from Camino Alto, you'll see that we're far below the allowable buildable area. We have a flat roof language here with strong horizontal lines in this case. A very sort of simple, modern aesthetic. Having the 14-foot high space, the great room area, that's sort of limited to this area, which allows for, you know, some views from the road beyond, which I think is desirable. This is sort of a view of the existing wall and the infill. I'm sort of showing this because it'll give you a flavor for the elevations that we're proposing here. Right now, the existing wall is sort of a scalloped stucco wall here, and we're looking to just use the existing wall, but just infilling it to sort of a more serene, you know, horizontal feel that matches the house. For the axonometric views, to give you a bit of a better view for the massing, here's the second story area on the one side with sort of a silhouette of the neighbor and that massing here, with this language of stucco and Alaskan cedar and stone veneer, natural stone veneer accents. So we're sort of using that in a combination for our material palette. This is sort of the street view side over here. So you'll see here's that 14-foot high level right over here with a lower, I guess, terraced language, architectural language that we're using. This is at the kitchen area, and then obviously the sort of the bedroom wings up here tucked to the side over the garage. And I don't know if you want to talk to the landscape component to this. Okay. Okay. The very first one? Oh.
Just the first, yeah, that one. So this is just our tree protection plan, just to show our due diligence that, you know, there's 5 trees that we're leaving to remain, and we're removing 3 yucca trees, and we're just really cleaning up the site. We spoke to the city arborist and Nathan Slack, and he said yuccas aren't really technically considered trees, so no problem in the removal in the front setback. So we're really just protecting everything and cleaning everything up, and we're adding 15 new trees. So if you go to the next sheet, I'll show you our proposed landscape preliminary plan. So this is in the high fire zone, so we're really looking to keep everything low and as native and fire-wise as possible. The neighboring properties on either side both have an 8-foot high fence, and then we're adding a 6-foot high fence on either side and our own plants on our side. So privacy has really been addressed, we believe, with the new landscape and existing landscape. We're adding new plantings throughout. If you go scroll down to some of the images, you can kind of get an idea. We're going more naturalistic and simple in design as far as plant palette. You can see an image of what just simple path lighting would look like. We're going to use permeable pavers. If you go back to the site plan, I'll point out where we're using those. The gate is existing. You just go back to the next sheet. The gate is existing in location, and we're just updating it, and we'll show you an elevation there, and you kind of saw in Lino's renderings. But it's a pretty sloped driveway, so that in that area we're leaving it as concrete, but then the entry apron and then the bottom area will be permeable pavers. And if you go down to the south, the patio, those raised planters, we're planting in front of them significantly to help with that elevation, and then just restoring the hillside as much as possible and making it as fire-wise as possible. And that's basically the landscape design at this point. We have a list of plants. And then if you look at that elevation, you can kind of see what was existing and what's proposed. So updating to match architecture for the entry gate. And then if you want to go to the next sheet, this is the neighborhood compatibility study that was done with the addresses in the immediate area and images to support. Anyone else wants to comment on the compatibility? But that concludes landscape's presentation.
We also completed a study across the valley here. So this is, the canyon, I'm sorry, yes. So this is a Google overlay of our proposed building here with the neighbor to the south and to the north, with that bedroom wing here off to the side. And then, again, from the canyon, from down below, it's way off in the distance.
It's actually, that's the road across.
Yes. So, yeah, down from the lower road.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yep. Yep.
And in terms of the FAR, we are currently at 86%. We didn't manipulate any of the formulas that were the default. When it's calculated, we're actually at 85.4, but it automatically rounds up. If that's an issue at all, we can certainly shave off 21 square feet and get it in compliance.
Okay, is that the conclusion of your presentation?
That's the conclusion, yes.
All right, thank you. Bring it back to Ms. Pilar. Did we get any public comment, please?
Thank you, Chair Miller. And if you're attending via Zoom and you would like to make public comment on this particular item on the agenda, you may do so by clicking the raise your hand icon. Ms. Gu, actually, can you swift to the staff presentation materials? Thank you. So that's on the screen. So again, if you're attending via Zoom and you'd like to make public comment on this item, you can do so by clicking the raise your hand icon, and that will notify staff that you would like to speak. While we're waiting to see if any hands will be raised, are there any members attending the meeting that would like to make public comment on this item on the agenda? Do not see anyone. And then Ms. Gu, did we receive any written correspondence in advance of this meeting?
We did receive one public comment from Helena Hill on this particular item.
Thank you. And are there any hands raised in Zoom?
Not so far, no, we don't.
So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, I'll bring it back to the board for questions. Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any questions, please?
Yeah, I'm hoping that you can help me understand a little bit. If we go to the other page of perspectives, perhaps, there's one on actually the lower left, or that one's good, the upper left perspective. So you have this large element that's kind of running left, right on the page, and it's returning into a vertical element. It looks like it's to the left of your cursor. Yeah, just there. Are they just above that? Right there. That's the element I'm talking about. Is that a roof that is coming out and then it's being supported? I'm trying to understand that relationship, the relationship of that horizontal element to the volume below it. Are there clear story windows there, or is that just an element that runs out and there's a void between? It's difficult to ascertain in this perspective.
Of course, yes. It's a combination of both. These are clear story windows at the kitchen area and living room.
And those sit back from the volume that's in the foreground?
Correct.
Okay.
And then there's a barbecue area off to the patio side, and that's an open area.
It's open but covered?
Yes. So this is those clear stories that we're talking about, but you're looking at the other side. And then here you'll see a little peekaboo view of the opening.
Okay. That's very helpful. Thank you. What are your floor-to-floor heights on both the first and the second floor?
We have 9 foot and 9 foot, and then 14 feet for this raised roof area.
Okay. You're at 86%, and can you scroll down just a moment so we can look at the finishes again? The natural stone veneer that you're proposing, can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
It's a true natural stone veneer, 1.5 inches to 1.75 inches thick. This particular one, it's called Pilatus, and I don't remember which quarry it's coming from. Sorry about that.
Do you know the general region in the country that it comes from?
This one is, I believe, in Colorado.
Okay. Those are my only questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Brettlinger, do you have any questions, please?
Yeah, just a couple. I wonder if you could turn to A222. It's the upstairs floor plan. There you go. I'm just trying to understand the deck relationship to the rest of the house. Like, how is it actually accessed here?
Okay. We have two, I guess, deck areas. One is off the master over here, and that's a balcony with sliding doors.
Right.
And the same thing with the studio bedroom area. There's a deck that's over the shop area. And again, that's accessed with the sliding doors.
I'm talking really about the roof deck, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. This guy over here.
Right.
Yes, we have a stair that goes up 4 feet. And yeah, it's not really shown in this, but there's a door that leads to the patio area over here.
Okay. So the roof deck elevation is below the actual second story, is that right?
Let me go back to the 3D view to help that out.
It's always a challenge for us because we have about 5 minutes or 10 minutes to sort of like get this whole plan stuck in our brains.
Absolutely.
And so it's yeah, sometimes it's helpful to have you walk us through.
So here's that 14-foot roof height, and then here's that deck area with cable rail on 2 sides. And then we're showing sort of a solid wall over here that, honestly, where we're considering it, it's a little sharp, a little dense. But we were trying to do that to create some privacy from the road. Now, in retrospect, you know, it certainly could be cable rail, but we feel like it's a nicer touch if that was a built-in planter to soften that edge.
Okay. Appreciate that. And That's it for my questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, you have nothing to say. Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions, please?
Are those steps that go to that deck that we just discussed, are they outside?
They are outside and
They
they'll
are
need their own
outside,
drainage,
okay.
yeah.
So there's a door at the bottom in the hull, or the circulation area, right there, at the bottom of that circulation area.
Exactly.
Okay. And this band that goes above the garage and then around the base of the bedrooms, is that a band that sticks out and it is delineated, or is it, obviously it's got a line right underneath, right at the sill line of the windows. Is that delineated and then it steps back?
Yes, we're looking at that as being, 4 inches proud from the finish of the stucco.
Okay.
And that carries, through the house. So that's an interior element as well.
So and the outside, there is an outside first story deck area underneath the master bedroom. That's all, well, we're looking at it right there.
Yes, so that continues all the way through the house, including the
So
interior.
underneath the master bedroom, underneath the master bedroom and deck is open deck.
Correct.
Could we look back at the site plan and look at the houses on the two sides? Do we have those located?
We do have the outline here. Oh, that one does not.
You just have that one, you don't have the one below.
Oh, it's not showing up here, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, hold that for a second. So we're looking at. And the driveway, the entrance at the street is higher, is that higher than the lot?
It is,
So
yes.
it comes down, driveway comes down.
Correct.
So is the street level, basically level with the bedroom floor?
With the bedroom floor, that's about right.
About that? And this is an empty lot right now.
Correct.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you. Just trying to get familiar with the site.
Do you know what your front yard setback is?
That's 35 feet.
Do you have a picture of the site plan? Let's see how
Sure.
it impacts your.
So we have our 30-foot right-of-way, and then here's a 35-foot front setback to this edge here. So
Okay.
we're well beyond that.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that was my only question, actually, so I'll move to comments. Board Member Vice Chair Collas, do you have any comments, please?
I do. Don't have a lot of them. I appreciate the relationship in massing of the house in terms of, and I'm trying to orient myself, I'm assuming that north is up on the page. It seems like it would be.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. So I really like the fact that you've kept a one-story element to the north of the parcel because it sort of relates well to the house next door, and that your two-story volume is towards the south. I think that's great. I personally would prefer to see a native stone than something from outside of the area on the outside cladding. I don't quite understand the intent or the need for the upper deck on the roof. I'm familiar with this lot. I've walked by it many a time. You have incredible views. You will not be lacking views out of your house or out of the lower deck or out of the decks off the master balcony. So I'm not sure what the intent is there to have that. I think it could help keep the massing feeling smaller if that were to be removed. especially the opaque or the solid element that you were talking about using to screen the street. Those are my sort of initial big picture comments.
All right, thank you. Board Member Brettlinger, comments, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a great geometry project. I mean, there are so many angles in this thing.
Yes.
But which makes it really interesting. So I appreciate the way you've displayed it in the simulations. It helps us a lot in terms of understanding its relationship to what's around it, as well as the mapping of the comparable neighborhood architecture. Really, those are my only comments. That I think I think high quality. I think it's a high quality materials. I think that the design is suitable for the neighborhood, and I support what you're doing. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah, could we look at the front elevation again?
The 3D or just the 2D?
Just the elevation is fine.
So here is the guest bedroom, the garage over here, front entry door, those clear stories with the opening to that barbecue area here.
And that's the deck up there.
And this is the deck up here.
Okay. Could we look at the I forgot what it's called. Perspective? The front perspective.
Sure.
No. Right there. Yeah, that would be fine. I support what you've done. I think the project follows our guidelines. I was looking at this just to imagine the roof of the living room, the great room, and the kitchen with no deck on top of it. And I think we could take that deck and change the material. I think it adds to the size, bulk, and scale of the building. And I see a lot of houses with just a wing out here and two-story over here, and all of a sudden that combines the two. But we might be able to do something with the material that wall is made out of to soften it a little bit, but still remain there and give us fit our size, bulk, and scale a little bit more, rather than eliminate it. If you want a deck, I don't see anything wrong with a deck up there. Other than that, I support the project.
Okay, thank you. So I'm a little struggling here a little bit. So based on and I'm looking at this, and this is a modern house. I want to make it clear. So I want to put that. So one of the kind of like there's a positive and negative impact, and my struggling is how it is approaching the front of the house. It's a very abrupt, high profile in the front, and what we kind of like to go for is more like you flow with this slope of the
Apologies,
existing.
Chair Miller. I just want to have City TV. Can you zoom in on the book in front of the chair? Thank you.
Do you have yours? Mine has coffee all over mine. It's embarrassing.
This is not being ugly here.
It's page 53H.
I know, but your pages are different.
Serious?
Yeah, they are. Hold on.
Great.
What's that?
Sorry.
Yeah, just maybe it's right here.
That's it. Oh, they changed it. Yours have shiny pages too, that's not fair. Anyway.
Sitting on a hill, it would
So,
hit us, so it doesn't hit us
yeah.
that hard.
So I'm kind of looking at that approach, because you had a picture of I saw it with a great picture of the houses next to it. What is that thing called that you take those distant pictures with? But, oh, that's great right there, yeah. Somehow lessening the impact of so it kind of isn't so bulky, I guess I'm having a struggle with the bulk in relation to the hillside topography. And also, it kind of overwhelms the house on the left side. There's another photograph taken by one of those things that I can't think of what they're called. Drone, yes, that drone photograph you took, I think is a good exemplifying. You have that? If you could bring that up, that'd be great. Kind of show you what I'm struggling with. Yep, that's it. Up on the left corner, yeah. So, yeah, see how it kind of it overwhelms the tile courthouse on the left, and I think you need to pull that back a little bit so that they're not. See, that needs to be a little more subdued. So I guess the word I want to use there. It just needs to be pulled back so it doesn't lurch over, because it kind of looks like it's overwhelming the little tile house on the left. Just the overall bulk of the house needs to be reduced. I mean, some of the options may lower the plate heights perhaps. And one of the things I noticed about this is they've got the garage on the base of the hill, and you're struggling with a garage that's on the top. So you have to deal with a driveway, and you have to deal with that. So I was thinking, how would you push that back so that it wouldn't so much be overwhelming on the edge of the cliff there? I'd be a little more comfortable with the house in that configuration. I think the style's fine, but I think that needs to be looked at and studied for me to feel a little more comfortable approving it, because I'm kind of looking at this approach that I think would work a little better with that. So I think those are my only comments at this time.
May I say something to follow up with what you
Sure,
just said?
of course.
I don't think this lot matches our guidelines right there, the way you described it. And I don't want to disagree with you, but I think you left it very, very vague and used some things that our guidelines don't represent what they have here. And they're not struggling with a garage. They have a garage, and the reason I asked what level that street was with the second story floor level is because from the street, the house flows. And I haven't seen the landscaping is something I probably should look at again, but it could soften that greatly.
Well, this kind of illustrates my struggle right here, how it kind of, if you look at that compared to this, that to me does not follow the top, it's not sympathetic with the topography of the existing grade. And that's what I'm stuck with.
It's not our fault that the house, it's not the client's fault that the house next door is very small.
Well, so in an effort to facilitate or to moderate the conversation, and I'm going to try to paraphrase what you're
Yeah.
saying in a different way. I think when we're looking at this section, the portion that is above the garage, I think if that portion of the home stepped back from the road, and if the lower level sat proud of the upper level on the low side of the parcel, I think that starts bringing it further into conformance with the guidelines that Chair Miller was talking about. So I think it's the stacked approach, this very abrupt stacked approach to the two-story volume that he's responding to. Is that
That's
accurate?
fine, yeah.
Are we talking about the downhill side of the
So,
house? or
well,
the
I'm
garage
just,
side
I
of the
think I
house?
made it pretty clear what I'm saying here.
Go
Just
ahead.
when you look at that compared to this, it looks like it's not sympathetic to the topography, and Ms. Kalas has made a suggestion of how maybe that would work. So that's my only, that's my comment. I mean, I think that's something that, I
I'll
think that
leave it
needs
at
to be
that.
looked at and explored. So, anyway, they're here just for design.
Chair Miller, they're here for an initial concept review, so they're looking for a motion again about general compatibility with the guidelines, overall size, bulk, and scale, layout of elements on the property, any preliminary landscape comments, if you'd like to provide those as well. That would be appropriate at this time.
Okay, thank you. So, yes, Ms. Claus, would you
Can I
like-
ask one question?
Yeah, of course.
And then I will. Can I ask one question about the landscape? You showed a sort of olive, light-colored olive that looked like it was general ground cover around the home. It wasn't the turf area. Do you have an idea of what you'd be doing for that? Because I was looking for a keynote, but I didn't
Yeah,
see
this
one.
is pretty conceptual at this point. So I have a list of plants that we'll draw from, and then imagery that supports it. So that olive color is just a general planting area.
Just like a low succulent ground cover type of thing, or a low turf?
It'll
or-
vary.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay.
And if you, like grasses or and low shrubs, you know.
Okay. Okay, that was,
One other question. Is that area just to the, next to the garage, is that wide enough to park a car in there? Between the garage and the steps, what is that distance there? Yeah. And I'm just looking to see what,
I believe we only have about 6 feet there.
Yeah, the steps are 8 feet wide.
right there, about 6 feet?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just wondering what it's going to be used for. It's-
Yeah, it's just for, the trash enclosure over here, so it's just access.
Okay. And the tree, how big, what is that tree? I can't, the name of that tree is off the screen, so on the left, the high tree. Yeah, right there in the left-hand corner of the property.
At the top. It's just at the top of the property in the front. Is that new medium focal tree call
Yeah,
out?
what are they, focal tree, new medium focal tree? What's a
Yeah, so
focal
we
tree?
haven't selected. We just have a list of trees that we're gonna choose from.
Okay.
But it'll be a larger tree.
Okay,
Okay.
Ms. Claus, could you make, yes, please.
Chair, okay.
And they're just comments only.
So, yeah, does this require a motion or just comments?
Thank you for the question, Vice Chair Kalas. They are looking for a formal motion, just providing conceptual comments.
Okay. Okay, so I would say, and this will be open to modification, that in general, the board is comfortable with the style of the home that's being presented and the color palette. There has been a recommendation that the veneer stone be considered in a native stone. The board appreciates the one-story massing on the north side of the parcel. The board would like the applicant to return with a study of the southerly wing of the project that would potentially bring the project more into line with our hillside guidelines. More specifically, to return with a proposal that would step the building down with the topography and avoid a tall stacked two-story mass. The board is split on the issue of the upper deck. as to whether it's necessary or whether the solid screened wall on the west side of the upper deck is necessary. That's my motion.
All right, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll give it a second.
Okay, all right. May I have a roll call, please?
I guess that would be to return to full board.
Yes, continued indefinitely to the full board. Okay. Board member, I'm sorry. Chair Miller,
Yes?
Vice Chair Kalas,
Yes.
Board member Mutish, Tisha, and Board member Brentlinger.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thanks.
And Mr. Chair, the next item isn't scheduled to start until 5:40, and on our agenda, we have a scheduled snack break.
Okay.
So we'll be doing that. I do think that snack was scheduled for about 15 minutes to 20 minutes, so I think we can return at maybe 5:30 or 5:35, depending on what your preference is. Do you prefer 5:30 or 5:35?
5:30.
5:30? Okay, so we'll be reconvening at 5:30. Then, Ms. Gu, can you switch to the staff presentation? Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll be back at 5:30. convene the Single Family Design Board. We're at item number 5. Is that an actual address, 0?
Until we're assigned one by the fire department.
Oh, I see. It's a mystery address. Okay.
Yeah.
Los Tunas Road. Okay, I would like to read into the record, proposal to construct a 3,752 square foot single unit residence located on a vacant lot in the Hillside Design District with a basement level comprised of, with a basement level comprised of 3-car garage, a wine cellar, pool equipment room, main entry, and bedroom, a new swimming pool and spa, 2 exterior landscape terraces, and 4 exterior wood decks. Landscape walking path and driveway with a motor court are also proposed. Additional improvements include grading, new native landscaping throughout the site, and removal of 1 non-specimen pepper tree. The proposed total of 3,752 square feet on a 1.39 acre lot is 72% of the maximum guideline Florida lot area ratio. Bless you. Project received a one-time pre-application consultation on April 26, 2021 under PRE 2021-00122. Project design approval is requested. Neighborhood preservation findings, Hillside Design District, and slope lot findings and grading findings are required. Welcome.
Thank you.
So can I get clarification what that is?
Thank you, Chair Miller. Yes, and I'll pull on the screen the minutes from the one-time pre-application consultation.
Okay.
So this project did come before the board previously on April 26, 2021. Let me go to those minutes just so we have that on the screen. And the intent of a one-time pre-application consultation is just to get general feedback about a proposed development. And you'll notice there's no formal motion for that type of hearing. It's just comments provided by the board. So it could allow you to see those. These comments are non-binding compared to a formal motion, but they are provided here for context since you did review some version of this residence previously.
So there's a lot of comments. Should we read them in the record, or should we, what do you think's the best way to approach this?
Again, they're non-binding. I think if you'd like to read them into the record, that's your discretion.
How much is there?
There's quite a few comments. And
I
I would also say the applicant team can just go through, how they've responded to those comments.
Based on the
yeah.
volinosity, whatever
Yeah.
that word is, I think I'll leave it up to you to
Okay.
go over it and look forward to seeing your project.
And then Board Member Bretlinger.
Yeah, one question of order is, I did not interpret the one-time pre-app consultation to be a meeting of this board, so I was not present for that and have not read any of this information before.
Sure.
So I need to know my status for this meeting.
Yes, so if you are not familiar with the project plans that were reviewed previously, that's fine, because again, this was a one-time pre-application consultation, not a formal concept review. And again, these are non-binding comments, so you can review it just
Okay.
as a new item today.
Okay.
They are requesting project design approval, as it says on the agenda, but that is the discretion of the board, if you'd like to grant that.
Great, thank you.
I'm reading them right now. There's quite a divergence of comments there. Boy, you had a lot of stuff to chew on. So,
Well, I think in general they were fair comments.
yeah.
And then, Ms. Gu, if you can switch to the applicant presentation materials, and to the applicant team, you'll have 15 minutes for your presentation. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Hey.
Can we introduce ourselves so I know who's
Yes, I'll
who's
do
the
that right now.
architect and who's the landscaped and who's the structural and who's the owner and who's the friend of the owner and
Well, first of all, good afternoon, board members, and thanks for your time and consideration. I'm Dave Mendrow. My firm's NMA Architects, and I'm here on behalf of our clients who weren't able to come to the meeting today, Mark and Ginger Sinnott, and we're requesting design review approval.
Okay.
Today, we have our team here. Scott Menzel is a landscape architect.
Okay.
Patrick's architect with my office.
Okay.
Mike Viatoni's a civil engineer, and Evan and Harley are our land use planners. So they're
Very cool.
available for
Wow.
to answer questions.
Okay.
And this is, I'm going to start with our proposal the last time around, and our current proposal actually follows this almost exactly. There haven't been any substantive changes to what we showed you before. We just have more details and more developed design. I'd like to, let's see, I'll start with the context, the site context. So this is our site. Are you all familiar with it? It's up on Las Tunas in the Upper Riviera, and it's an undeveloped site, and the reason for that is because it's very steep, so it's a challenging site to develop. This photo shows the site location. It also shows that it's a pretty eclectic neighborhood. The houses to the southwest here are of one development, are Spanish style, but the majority of the rest of the neighborhood surrounding the property up Las Tunas and around is predominantly not Spanish style. So that's one thing I did want to address from the last meeting. And we do have photos of the neighborhood. I may as well just show those now. If you look at these photos, I walked up and down Las Tunas bordering this property, and the majority of the homes are a lot of different styles, but not Spanish, except for that development down below. So these are the views taken looking from a distance to the property. The property in general is fairly secluded and well screened. These are from that lower development looking through, and you can see the trees in that green area that they have between them and our property already pretty well screen it. But as you get closer to the property on Las Tunas, it becomes more visible. And so these are images looking at the bottom of Las Tunas up at the property. And these are images coming down Las Tunas from the north, looking at the property. And these are the views from the property looking out. And you can see when you look out from the property, you don't see a lot of the neighboring residences. You basically see screening. And then this is the house next door to us, just down, that has a similar layout on the hillside as we will have, and shows how there is a two-story house, and with screening, they've been able to achieve privacy for themselves and from the street, and that's what we're proposing, and that's what Scott will show you with his landscape plan. And then I'll just quickly go through these. These are the plans that we showed you last time, just to give you a sense, and then we'll go to the ones that are current. So that's looking from lower Las Tunas. This is looking from upper. And then these are the elevations. So this is our project now. Size-wise, we're relatively modest size. We're 72% of the recommended FAR. And then skip to the renderings. So this is that same view that we had before of the current design that's much more developed. I'm going to switch over to the material board here. So for the materials, the roof fascias, the ceilings, the eaves, the trellises, and louvers in the decks are all a natural cedar and spruce wood. The building and site walls are the integrally colored dark gray plaster. Doors and windows are clear anodized aluminum. The steel trellis framing for the steel framing for the trellis and the balconies are dark gray painted metal. The deck railings are stainless steel cable railing. And there is a little bit of the floor edge that shows on the house on the exterior that comes inside out, and that's a warm gray porcelain tile. And then the roof color is a dark brown.
So when you're going through and describing your elevations, can you pinpoint on our comments where you got your inspiration in terms of how it guided you in terms of how you came up with this design? Where you came from, the comments that we spoke? And
Sure. I don't know if you really commented on the materials. Basically, we presented the project. The concept of the project, let me go to that real quick, was really to have a low linear house that was receded in the landscape, didn't have a strong presence, and was really a backdrop to the site and the views. And
I
that's
saw
what
that
we
as
talked
one
about.
comment, but I also saw one that Mr. Sweeney said about being something else. That's why.
Well, I think his concern was that it wasn't compatible with the neighborhood. And
Anyway, yeah, I just would figure out how you approach this based on our comments. That's I just.
yeah, well, I think, okay. Why don't I keep going and then we'll
Okay,
see if I
please,
get
yeah.
there, okay.
In all due respect, it's coming across like you've designed it without considering our comments. That's why I want to make clear that there is a
Okay,
connection.
well, hopefully that isn't the case, but when
That's why
when
I
we
want you to
presented it last
substantiate.
time, to my mind, we got favorable comments, and
Okay.
and so we've built on what we already showed you, yeah. And we're very consistent with what we originally showed.
So
Yeah.
I'm really struggling right now. We
Uh-huh.
may have to read those comments because I don't feel comfortable.
Chair Miller, if you'd like, I can read the comments into the record. I just want to remind the board, though, that those comments are, again, non-binding. So
Non-binding.
they're not intended to be treated as the same as a formal concept review where the comments proceed
Okay.
through each review.
All right. In that
So-
case, I won't
Right.
pursue it. All right.
Thank
Go
you.
on. Go on.
Okay. And this is the view of the house from up on Upper Los Tunas. So on the site plan, we've located the house centrally on the site. The setbacks from the neighbors in the streets all well exceed the required setbacks. The two significant challenges with the site is providing fire truck access and minimizing grading. So we've worked with Mike Viatoni, the civil engineer. He's designed this driveway specifically to the fire department's requirements. It's a 16-foot wide driveway. And the house form and the driveway we've aligned with the natural contours of the site to minimize the grading. And the majority of the grading actually is required by the fire department to get the slope of the driveway to work for their requirements. If we go to the sections, you can see that the house is significantly below the 30-foot maximum height allowed, and that's because we've recessed it into the site. We have low plate heights. The upper floor is a 9-foot plate height, and the lower walkout basement garage is 9'6". So we're really trying to keep the profile of the building low. I'm going to figure out how to zoom in on this. This was requested for your board. It's a 3D grading study, and so I think this illustrates how the house fits into the site, how the driveway works with the lower sloped area of the site, and the way the one portion where we do have the walkout basement is recessed, and really you would never see that from anywhere outside of the site. So it really appears as a low horizontal single-story structure. This is the basement floor plan, and it comprises of a garage, a guest bedroom, and we have a mechanical space where we're placing the pool equipment. The upper floor has a living, dining, kitchen, great room space, 2 bedrooms, and a study. This is the roof plan, and it shows we have a low profile or narrow profile roof edge and an integral gutter system. It's basically a flat roof. These are the elevations that again show the horizontal nature of the project, the low plate heights. We have extended roof overhangs, 9-foot overhangs, and the way the structure is recessed into the hillside, the backside's quite low. These are the building sections, door and window schedules, and then these are the building section details for the project. And I'll go through these relatively quickly unless you have any questions. And these are the details. This is the electrical plan. We've really worked to minimize the exterior lighting and also the interior lighting. All the fixtures on the project are 1-inch aperture recessed downlights. On the basement level, we'd have 3 lights integrated in the trellis above, shining down. We have 1 downlight wall sconce at the entry and 1 step light low on the wall at the bedroom door coming out for egress. On the second floor plan, we have recessed downlights in the trellis above this 1 deck area, and then all the other lights that we need for egress and for the decks are all low recessed step lights in the wall. Then we have, there was some questions and concerns about the stormwater management on the project. So Mike Biatoni, the civil engineer, has done grading plans and stormwater management plan, and that's what these sheets are. And he's available to answer any questions.
Okay.
And then lastly, we have the landscape plans, and I'm going to hand it over to Scott. Yes.
This is the planting plan, and the site, the existing site is dominated on the western half by a non-native euphorbia that's sort of naturalized itself. We're trying to retain as much of that as possible. And then the eastern half.
Apologies, if you can just make sure your microphone is on. It should be green, and then just speak into the. Yeah.
There we go. Okay, sorry. The eastern half is pretty much undeveloped with sort of meadowy grasses that we are wanting to preserve and enhance. Between the house and the road, we were very cognizant of views from the road looking up at the house. So you'll find, I think, 11 new trees, a mix of oaks and olives, staggered on the hillside to kind of soften the view or block the view from Las Tunas without obstructing views from the house south towards the city. And then new landscaping is really just minimal, and the scope is pretty tight to the house, where we have a mix of California native and other drought-tolerant Mediterranean plants. And then everywhere else, again, we want to retain the existing euphorbia to the west, and then hydroseed the existing grassland that's throughout the rest of the property, and sort of enhance that and use that as a theme to the project. If you go towards the end of my plan set, there's a landscape lighting plan. That's the plant palette. The lighting plan consists of 1 type of fixture, a path light fixture. There's a few in the driveway motor court area, and then a few lights at both ends of the house. And if you go 1 more sheet, Dave, there's a cut sheet of that fixture. I think it's a little 2-watt path light. And I skipped over some plan sheets, irrigation plan, hardscape details. And I skipped over those for the sake of time, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address those.
Okay, thank you. Did we get any public comment?
We did receive some written public comment from members of the Santiago Hill Owners Association. 2 people from that association wrote in, and we do have, let's see, about 9 people potentially waiting for maybe
So
audio
if
comment.
you are attending the meeting remotely via Zoom and you would like to make oral public comment on this item on the agenda, staff would ask that you click the raise your hand icon, and that will notify staff that you would like to speak. And Ms. Gu, do we have any hands raised at this moment?
So far, we have 1.
Okay, so let's do that one.
Bruna Brine, you can go ahead and speak.
And you'll have 2 minutes once you, perfect, we can hear you.
They usually means their phone's up against something.
Can you hear me? We can hear you, it's echoing though.
They have 2 devices.
Yeah, if you have do you have 2 devices on, a phone and a computer? Yeah, you'll just want to mute or
Turn
turn
one
off
off.
the Bluetooth for one of them so that there isn't the echoing effect. Then are you still there?
I'm still here.
Please turn off one source of your audio. There should be only one on.
Interesting. Okay, that's. It's not gonna work.
So Ms. Gu, let's
If I turn my, something was about my microphone, I just heard my voice.
So, if you'd like to do public comment on this item, please just make sure you're using one device only. Kathy, do we have any other hands raised? We'll move on to another one.
Ivan Donahoe, you can speak now.
Hi there, are you able to hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
My question was just around the irrigation. I know that that was touched on in the beginning of the design review at high level. Living on Las Tunas, I know that when we have heavy rains, we do get quite a bit of water flow coming down that section of the road in front of this property. Just curious, how is the irrigation going to be handled if there's a mix of hardscaping and obviously the infrastructure for this home?
Should we
Yeah,
respond?
why don't you respond?
I
So-
think I'd ask Mike to respond here. I'll get
So,
this.
Mr. Chair, typically we don't respond to, this is just public comment. The member of the public has 2 minutes to provide comments. And if the board would like to revisit, items mentioned by a public commenter, you can do so during the questions portion to the applicant team.
I will. Yes, thanks.
We do have one more person who joined, Jeff Bryan.
Was he finished with his public comment though, Kathleen? Can you?
Okay, this is Bruna Byrne again. I'm
Oh,
sorry. We've got a better computer now. So my husband Jeff and I live at 2210 Santiago Road, which sits right below the proposed project, kind of in a fishbowl effect. We've really been disappointed that no one from the design team has reached out to discuss this project's design concerns before or after the conceptual design review with either us or as we know it with our neighbors that sit right below. So here we're going to air our concerns now for both ourselves and some of our affected neighbors. Well, number one, in terms of the design in general, we don't find the design style compatible with the neighborhood, but we could see that if the house was truly tucked and screened in the hillside, it could possibly blend in, but we don't see that now. Right now, it's very difficult for us to imagine where the house will sit or its full impact on us without having story poles. We understand that the hillside will be excavated, but again, we don't understand exact placement, its protrusion above the grade, or its impact on us or our other neighbors. In terms of lighting, the lighting plan looks lovely from the outside. The proposed current facade, though, is primarily glass and is very uncharacteristic of the neighborhood, which tends to be, there's a lot of Mediterranean. There are some other eclectic styles, but there is a lot of Mediterranean. There's a lot of red tile roofs and a lot of stucco siding. All of the glass provides beautiful views for this property, but at night, the light emitting from all of those windows may look like a spaceship sitting above us. Of course, we're very concerned about that. And we're also concerned about reflection off all that glass during the daytime when the sun shines on it. It won't only affect us, but in the immediate neighborhood, but anyone else that have views from the hillside, including across to the mesa, actually. In terms of privacy, of course, the project looks right down on our properties into our upper windows of our homes and our backyards, and that's extremely concerning. We would like to ensure our privacy in the future with additional screening or whatever needs to change in terms of project design. Beyond the design, we have other concerns regarding fire safety, traffic, and parking as the project progresses.
Thank you. The 2 minutes are up. Thank you for your comments.
I'm going to go back in and see if Ivan Donahue had finished his public comment and if he wants to finish.
Good enough up till that point.
Yes, I'm on.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, that was pretty much everything. It sounds like it needs to be tabled to get that added explanation around the water flow and irrigation.
Okay, thank you.
I believe Mr. Jeff Bryan wants to speak also. Jeff Bryan, did you want to speak?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, pretty briefly, my wife Britta made most of our comments, but we did want to request that that we hold a meeting with the design team if they're available, just so they can walk us through some of the concerns that we've raised, and we can arrange that meeting along with our neighbors. It can be in person at our home. It can be via Zoom. I think just a short discussion, a better understanding of how the home will sit on the hillside, the issues that were raised regarding the potential lighting at night and glare during the day, and then also the privacy issues. I think we can better understand those with the design team. But right now, without story poles or without any other indicators for us on the hillside, it's very difficult for us to visualize that. So anyway, we would invite the design team to get in touch with us and meet with us, and hoping that the board can defer final approval until we've had that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Ms. Gu, do we have any other hands raised?
No, we do not.
Okay, and just to the audience again, if you would like to do public comment on this item on the agenda, we do have the ability to hear your comments. You can click the raise your hand icon. That'll notify staff that you'd like to speak. And I'll just give it another minute. No additional hands raised?
No additional
Okay.
hands raised.
Thank you.
May I ask where that person the couple that just talked, where their house is? Is it to the east, west, north, or south of the south?
Okay. And then Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you for questions.
All right, we'll bring it back to
said
the
they were
board for
on
questions. Vice Chair Colossi, any questions, please?
I guess the first question I'll ask is whether you've met with the neighbors.
Well, we have met with some of the neighbors. We didn't hear from those neighbors. They were all noticed, and I'm sorry we didn't have the opportunity to meet with them, but we're definitely open to meeting with them.
Okay. And then in follow-up to the questions about water runoff, sheeting potentially from the driveway, I'm assuming irrigation will be minimal, but I need to hear that. If somebody, maybe civil engineer or landscape, could speak to those issues that were raised by the public speakers.
Hi, my name is Mike Viatoni. I'm the civil engineer for the project. And yes, I can address that question as far as stormwater runoff from the site. Since this is an undeveloped site, my civil work includes the construction of a detention system that would address stormwater runoff so that we can keep it to historical levels for the 2, 5, 10, 25, 50, and 100-year storm event.
Okay.
And that includes both the house itself as well as the driveway that we're collecting.
Okay. Can you show us on the plans where you are anticipating to put the detention?
Yes, if you can get to C1. So the detention system would go at the very bottom of the site, below the driveway, right above where it says Tunis Road, right above there. That rectangular box right there is where we capture water, let it sit in there, and slowly bleed it out to match the historical flows.
Okay. So is there a slight cross slope to the driveway so that that captures the water?
Yes.
And
so
that is.
we have a curb on the downhill side, so we're trapping the water on that one side, and then we have a trench drain at, I think we have 2 trench drains actually, to collect that water running off from the driveway and taking that on over into our detention chambers.
Okay. And along Las Tunas itself, I think that right now might just have a asphalt curb or a rolled curb or no curb. Is there any plan to improve that and have a curb there that would prevent any ambient runoff from the site?
What we try and do is look at the site as a whole. And so, no, we are not looking at, like we'll just say the north end of the site where it's just sheet flowing off from the hillside through the grasses onto the road itself.
Okay. It won't be sheet flowing, right?
I'm just saying if we look at the undeveloped portion to the north, say, as an example, that currently just sheet flows off and downhill onto the road. We're not proposing to do anything there.
Okay. I think that's one of the concerns of the neighbors, possibly. That's why I was asking that question. Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Is your intention for that, so real quickly in terms of exterior colors, are you intending to let the red cedar gray out or to treat it to gray out? Or are you planning to treat it so that it will retain the color that you illustrated on the board?
Treated to retain the color that's illustrated on the board.
Okay. The roofing type, I know you showed that there's an edge to it, an integral gutter. What color is of roofing are you
It's a
proposing?
dark brown membrane roof.
Okay.
You would never see the roof from anywhere because of the elevation of the property.
Yeah, because the ridge, okay. I'm going to ask you a question. This might sound like a silly question, but I know it's one of the questions that the neighbors raised, and there are guidelines that we have in regard to night sky ordinances, and I might be presenting you with a problem that you could solve for the board.
Okay.
So more and more, we're seeing modernist projects, and how do we deal with the light pollution from that, right? Because we might have large overhangs, but we still get horizontal light pollution potentially. So have you considered any ways of mitigating that with perhaps a film, like a one-way film, or reversing a film and putting it on the inside of the glazing? Or is there anything that you're proposing that you would do that would help mitigate a lantern effect from the residents in the night hours?
Sure. First of all our lighting is very small, 1-inch diameter recessed lighting, so you wouldn't see the light source.
Mm-hmm.
In the interior?
I'm talking about
Interior and exterior,
okay.
both, yes.
Okay.
And then the materials that we're using are not reflective. The ceiling is the same stained wood,
Mm-hmm.
and the
Okay.
walls are dark gray, the main retaining wall, and the other materials, so they're not reflective at night. The shades that we'll use will be black in color, not white, so they won't reflect the light at night. The landscape actually screens this house pretty effectively already for that development where these concerns are being posed is from that development down to the southwest. Already they have a pretty big landscape buffer between our property and them with trees, and that already, as far as we can tell, screens the house pretty well. We're also more than willing to have them give us input and work with Scott to place screening so that it helps mitigate views from their houses and light. And we're not proposing a really tons of lighting either. Like on the exterior, we have the lighting for the one deck that they're going to use, but all the rest of it is low step lighting, and the landscape lighting is low path lighting, and it's all directed downwards.
Okay. And then the last question I'll ask you is the doozy, which is if you could just walk us through, for the benefit of newcomers and just to revisit this because it's been a while since we've seen it,
Sure.
as to how you sort of arrived at this long linear sort of sunken form as opposed to modernist form, as opposed to something that might generally feel more compatible with like the neighbors below you, let's say.
Sure. Well, I think it's kind of ironic because way back when originally there was a project reviewed by this board for these two properties that are vacant right now, and it was a Mediterranean-style house that was 2 stories right on the edge. It had exterior retaining walls that were 20 to 30 feet tall. So just because something's Mediterranean doesn't mean it's compatible. I think what's driving this design is trying to relate it to the site. It's recessed. The low linear form has less to do about being modern. It has more to do with fitting the contours to the site. It really allows us to minimize the grading because it just tucks in and we're not fighting the contours. But it is a contemporary house. That's very important to our clients. But again, in materials that we're using, respond to the site, makes the house recede with the landscape. It's all natural or native and adaptive landscaping. Is that correct? So we're really trying to, it's like I said in the beginning, the house is really seen as a backdrop to the site, and we're not trying to call attention to it. It's very low from the Las Tunas. It's going to appear as a single-story house, and I don't think you'll see it once the landscaping's in. And so that's what was really driving the building form, was coming up with an economical form that would minimize grading on this very difficult site. We didn't have a lot of options. It needed to be linear.
Okay, thank you very much.
Erlinger, do you have any questions, please?
I do, thank you. Just to follow on the lighting question, I understand that the installed lighting is all small diameter downlit. Perhaps a question might be the other lighting inside the house that the homeowners place, any kind of lamps, that sort of thing, that isn't contained the same way the ceiling installed cans might be. So, I'm looking at particularly at the living room where there's a large amount of fenestration there as a potential site where that would be most common. Do you have any studies or any way of displaying the sight line from that part of the house down to the homes below?
We could try to create something like that.
Okay.
I would need access to their site to look up. Again, I went down and took photos from their street looking between their buildings, and I couldn't see our site. I can show you that. But we need to verify this because, there might be some areas that I missed. But let me get back to this real quick. So I'm going to zoom in on this is our site, here's our building, and here's those homes. So these homes are impacted to a lesser degree. This one is probably the most affected because we're more directly across it, but it's also the furthest away. But you can see where I took these photographs, and I'll zoom back out. So you can see from that first down lower corner, you can't see our site because of the landscaping that's at the street level there. And let's try this one here. Again, there's quite a bit of landscaping. They're really down quite a bit lower.
Okay.
But so I'm more than happy to meet with them and at their specific sites and look at that, and then work with Scott to really strategically place the landscaping. This was the first we've heard of these concerns, so.
Okay, great, I appreciate that. I do have a question on landscaping then, which is, you'd mentioned that you were hydroseeding the eastern or southeastern part. With what would you be hydroseeding with?
There's a mix specified on one of the plan sheets, and it's a mix of all natives, mostly grasses. There's maybe about 10 different plant species in there. I think 6 or 7 of them are grasses. The others are native annual wildflowers, like California poppy being one of them.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And I think those are my questions. Thank you.
All right, Board Member Klein, do you have a question?
Yes, this might be more for civil, but have you guys done preliminary grading amounts? Just curious.
Yes, they're on the front page
They
of
are.
the set.
Okay. And then can you walk me through the retaining wall heights too, just quickly?
Sure. Let me, the wall in the back is 7 feet tall. And then I'm going to ask Patrick, this wall here and this wall.
That wall is, the visible height of that wall is probably only a couple feet because the grade comes piling up to it, and then on the backside is the level pad for the terrace.
What might be helpful is to go back to the, now I'm stuck. I apologize, I'm trying to zoom out, it's not cooperating. How about we go back to the grading study. There it is. So this wall is 7 feet. These walls are 2 feet and 2.5 feet. This one here,
7
7
feet at
feet.
the highest.
and then,
That's 5.5.
does that help with your question?
Yeah, and then the driveway, I'm just curious how big that wall is too.
Oh, down below?
Yeah.
Yes. So, there it is. It's showing right here. So that varies from 1 feet to 5 feet? 5 feet.
Great.
And again, that was required for the fire truck access.
Yeah, definitely. Great. And then there, and along the north property line in the back, there's something that I just was curious. Maybe the landscape. It's a landscape feature.
Yeah, I don't know if you're referring to, there's a little sitting area in the northwest corner. There's, yeah, so there's, there's this really cool boulder, bigger than a vehicle up there that sits right on the property line. And right at the toe of that boulder is just a really cool little spot with a nice view. And so my clients wanted a little sitting area. So we have a flagstone sitting area. And the idea was the pathway to it would be like a trail you'd go hiking on in the foothills of Santa Barbara. So crushed shale, no header or edging to it. The steps where they're needed would just be like flat boulders. It would just be something very organic and natural.
Great. And then my last question is about irrigation. Are you going to do temporary irrigation, sprays? Drip?
Ideally, I think it depends on the construction schedule, but ideally for all the hydro-seeded areas, we'd have the ability to hydro-seed in the fall and cross our fingers that we get some rain. So I'm not showing any permanent or temporary irrigation on the hydro-seed areas. Everything else is, all the other new plantings will be irrigated with drip, except there's a little rectangular turf area off the east end of the house that would have sprays.
Great. Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Okay, Board Member Matish.
Yeah, can we go back to the picture, looking, you're planted, the camera's below Las Tunas, and you're looking up at the house. You're in the lot below, right there. Is
want me
that the
to-
road that, we see a car right there? See the top of the car in that picture.
Yes.
That's the road right there?
Yes.
So your lot is above those trees,
You see this black dot right here?
right there?
That's our lot, yeah.
Okay, and is that just open, is that property but below the road, is that owned by
Yeah.
the lower property owners, or is it just open area?
It's an open area that they own.
They do own it all the way
Yeah.
up to Las Tunas?
See this area here? That's,
Yeah, that,
appears to be a dedicated landscape area with that development.
so it's just open, it's going to never be built on?
That's my understanding.
Okay,
So that photograph was taken from right down here at the corner, looking back
I'm just
up.
I'm trying to visualize what the couple that spoke earlier are describing, and, yeah, they live down one of the two houses down below down there. Okay.
Any more questions?
And can I address somebody in the audience? What house, do you live in one of those houses there? Second house up Santiago.
This one right here?
Okay, right there, okay. Okay, thank you, that's all the questions.
All right.
Sure, thank you.
I was looking at the comments we read, and I couldn't even figure out what I was saying in the previous one. I kind of figured out what I was saying. So. All right, that was, thank you. It was better, no one heard that. Yeah. So, I actually have no questions at this time, so we're going to go to comments. So, Board Member, Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any comments, please?
So when we last saw this project, I was struggling with compatibility. I think my comments reflect that. Because there are a lot of red tile roofs around here, around the site. But I also walk the backside of Las Tunas, and I know there's a lot of 1940s, 50s modernist homes back there. I think that this project approaches the site in probably the most sensitive manner that we could ask for it to be addressed, regardless of the style that's being, regardless of the style of the home. It's sunken down into the hillside. It's respecting the ridge line. I think there have been great efforts to keep grading to the greatest degree possible minimal. I like the minimalist approach to the landscaping. I'm really happy to see the euphorbia remaining, and I'll explain that to you a little bit more maybe after the meeting, but I live on a property where Bruce's dwarf started from, so I'm familiar with the euphorbia. I do have concerns, along with the lower neighbors, about a lantern effect that the home could have. It's a broader concern that I'm having in general right now on the board. I think you have a well-versed team that can deal with the civil issues, and they're obviously being thought about, which I think is good. I wish that the red cedar was going to be allowed to gray out. I think it can be beautiful, or it can be treated to gray out, but that's a personal preference, and I understand that. Those are really my only comments, except that I am not an anti-modernist. I just really think it depends on the project and how a site is approached, and I think this is a successful project, and I think it's been approached very sensitively, and so I'm in support of the project.
All right, thank you. Board Member Brentlinger, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah, thank you. I do think you put it well that you basically had a choice between an architecturally similar Mediterranean style, but tall and more massive building, or one that was not Mediterranean and was very much built into the hillside. That either one of those could have had some light impacts down below, and taking it down to as minimal height as you did, I think minimizes that. And I went out and looked at the site myself earlier today. I think to put any of those questions to rest, it's the right thing to do to try to look at that sightline study, which I would suggest you do strongly, just so everybody is clear on what will happen and what to expect.
Yes.
And I'm confident that you'll be able to do that. It's a very interesting building for all the reasons that have been described. And it is a special site, and I'm looking at the topo and how you drew the lines of the house to match the topo completely. I mean, I don't know, it's just line for line. So it's a very unique property, and I support it.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I agree. I think the project is compatible with the neighborhood because of the sensitivity to what's existing on site, which is a natural open space. So essentially, I think you're being the most compatible you can be. I think people in the neighborhood would rather keep that as an open space in general. So I think it's very compatible and sensitive to the neighborhood. I appreciate also the sensitive approach to irrigation and hoping to not irrigate even the open areas, planting at a sensitive time. And then also addressing the stormwater. The city of Santa Barbara, as we all know, has very strict standards. So I believe that the drainage will probably be improved by the engineering that is being done to keep stormwater on site. Those are my comments.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I did have a question. I forgot. Can I see the landscape plan? Oh. Okay.
Let's see. Would you like me to zoom in on it?
On the lower part.
Down
Yeah,
here?
by Los Tunas Road. Now scroll up a little bit.
Ooh, you're getting,
Oh, sorry.
just my abilities here. Oh, there,
There you go.
I lost it. Yeah, here, this is the way to do it.
Oh.
Yeah. Is
So
that
what are those little green things?
these?
Yeah. Those little bright green things. Little stars that look.
That's a small, a relatively small clumping grass called Pennisetum spathioletum. There's two grasses there, mid-sized grass, the Pennisetum, and then the yellow is Botula, another grass.
So, but the basic topography, the vast majority of it is open meadowy. There's no lot of plantings going on.
That's right. Everything's pretty low. It steps up a little bit at the house. There's high fire requirements that we have to adhere to, but we wanted to give the appearance that the house was really grounded in the landscape.
Okay. All right, thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any comments, please?
Thank you. Ditto everything everybody said before me. I could repeat everything, but I won't. How do I make a comment and turn it into, make a question and turn it into a comment? There is a sidewalk going in there? That's
Along
not a
Los
question.
Tunas Road, is that your question?
I just noticed something that looks like a sidewalk. Is that a sidewalk going on the north side of the Los Tunas?
No
White area?
No sidewalk.
What is that?
I think that's the road. You're just seeing the property line and maybe the south edge of the road there. That's giving the appearance of a sidewalk, although that looks relatively narrow to be the full width of the road. But it is a pretty narrow road there. Mhm. The topography comes
I'm
down.
looking at something that's probably 8 feet wide that goes the whole length of the southwest side of the property. The whole length of, what is that?
That's Los Tunas.
Run that line down. Run it right down. Take the cursor and go all
This
the way
is-
down, from corner to corner. What is that?
This line here?
No, there's a.
This is
Yeah,
Los
that whole
Tunas.
thing right there.
That's
What
Los
is that? Is that a
Tunas.
sidewalk?
No, that's
That's
the
the
road.
road.
That's the road.
The property line
Part of
extends
the
into
road.
the road. I think that's the confusion.
Oh, the property line goes into the road.
Yes. Center
Thank
line.
you, thank you, okay.
Oh, I see why.
Yeah,
Now I
it
see it,
kinda
yeah.
looks like a
That,
walkway.
that's the right of way, but this is the road. This is the actual,
It's ha-
only part of the
it's
road,
half
yeah,
the road.
yeah,
There's a center line.
yeah.
No, I think, I support the project. I think it follows our guidelines, and I love the fact that it's not quite in the middle of just disappearing, but I mean, there's houses in Montecito that don't match the estates right next to them that are underground. At least this is not totally underground. I think this passes our guidelines, and I will support it completely, even though it's around a bunch of Spanish Mediterranean houses. I don't see any objection to it. and I
Okay.
don't object to it.
Are you done?
That's all my comments.
Okay, thank you. I kind of said the same thing. It's not compatible to the neighborhood. However, based on the style and the way the house is placed, it doesn't cause a compatibility issue because you got it hidden. And the reason I asked about the landscaping was, I've seen a lot of modern homes where the landscaping grows up and it just vanishes the house. They just disappear, which is not quite going to happen here. And so you have this lantern effect going on that is a concern. What is the plate height of the house?
9 feet.
Yeah, see, that's great. So I can support the project. I think think you've satisfied a lot of issues with this property. I think Board Member Klein verbalized it very well, being sensitive to the property and not making it become a compatibility issue, which is kind of, so you did both things. You accomplished both things. So with that being said, would someone like to entertain a motion? They're here for project design approval, if you wish so like to give that to them.
And to the board, they are requesting project design approval, and a number of findings are required if the board opts to grant that at this hearing. So hillside design district findings, grading findings, and neighborhood preservation findings.
Quickly, you had a cut sheet, right, with the light fixtures and the colors and everything?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a question, Lord?
Yeah.
It's kind of a rhetorical question before somebody makes a motion, and that's whether we feel comfortable giving PDA before the applicant were to meet with the neighbors, as opposed to that being a condition of a project design approval.
That's a really good question.
And also to the board, if you did want to make that a requirement and have the project return for both project design approval and final approval at a separate hearing, that can also be an option. They still are addressing some stormwater requirements for Tier 3, but I think they're moving along with that pretty quickly. So,
Or is that appropriate for consent?
it's up to
Well-
the board if you would like to see this return to the full board or to the consent calendar. It's at your discretion.
So I guess Board Member Vice Chair Claus is concerned about good neighbor policy and having your neighbors get your feedback, whether we should get that before we grant you.
What if I make a motion and see what happens?
Please.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion for project design approval to come back for consent with the following findings. That the project fits within the topography of the site, as it's very sensitive in its grading and size, bulk, and scale, which is pretty much the second finding. That the grading will not significantly increase siltation in or decrease the water quality of streams, and that the proposed grading will not cause a substantial loss of southern oak woodland habitat. That the project is consistent in appearance with the neighborhood, as it's being very sensitive to the topography of the site and what's existing. It's compatible in size, bulk, and scale with a low plate height. Quality architectural materials are being used that blend into the hillside. No significant trees are being removed, and the habitat is being restored. The public health, safety, and welfare are appropriately protected and preserved. The good neighbor guidelines, we'd like to make a condition that the applicant meet with the neighbors to confirm and show that, as we have reviewed, that they have followed the privacy with significant landscaping that they're adding and with the sensitivity of their architecture, and no public views are being impacted.
And that concludes the findings.
All right, thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, does anyone have anything they would add to the motion? Hearing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Here we go. Chair Miller,
Yes?
Vice Chair Claus,
Yes.
Board Member Brentlinger,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks again for your time.
You're
Chair
welcome.
Miller, can you announce the 10-day appeal period?
Oh, yes, and there is a 10-day appeal period for this project. Appeal period. All right, you're welcome.
When you return, if you could bring something back with you in regards to meeting minutes or something like that when you're meeting with the neighbors,
Yes.
that would be helpful for us.
Yes, we will.
Okay, we're up.
Hopefully the next applicant.
I don't.
I know, that's awesome. Who
Well,
took to
actually,
sign the schedule?
It won't be story poles. It should be trying to, they should be showing sight lines from the exact position of the house down to where the airplane's at.
thinking the scenarios, and it's like,
But I think that they could do that for you.
because you, right, you just do it, yeah. Were they on tier 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
That
was
is our next agenda item
great.
today. That is the next project that's coming before us. Yeah.
Invite them over.
Excellent.
Thank you
Thank you.
for coming.
So, Chair Miller, let's recess for, let's see what time it is.
6:20.
So the item on the agenda is supposed to start at 6:25.
We're
It's
within it.
6:39 right now, so I think we can wait a little bit longer to see if
Wait
they'll be
till
present, but if they don't.
6:50?
So time is up in 1 minute, basically.
Yeah. They should be present.
Okay,
5 minutes, 5-minute recess.
okay, you want to take a, there's snacks left over, right?
Yes.
So I'd like to
What
call,
was that? What did Brian say?
all right, I'm going to call a 5-minute recess.
home. What's that? Yeah, I got one. I got one. Give him the last. Dinner time after we filled up on cookies. Dinner time.